That is not to be confused with Marty McFly and the Mysterians. Who did Marty McFly play with in Back to the Future when that song from Chuck Berry got reborn in one of the very best movies of all time? As we get underway on this Tuesday edition of the program, March the 31st. Forgive me while I send instructions back to the studio in Kitchener out loud. Jen, you have to unlock the phone lines now, so all of our anxious listeners have the opportunity to give us a call here on the show, because I make the promise, the minute we begin the show every day, our phone lines are open to you. 519-570-2545 and 1-800-570-5715. You might have noticed that I didn't mention star 570 because we're still having some trouble with that line. So don't bother wasting your time on it. We are more than happy to take calls at 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. To the song that started the show. Of course, it's none other than Johnny Be Good from Chuck Berry. On this day in 1958, it was released. That's like before the last time the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. But don't worry, Leafs fans. The Toronto Maple Leafs have fired their general manager, so everything's going to be fine now. Chuck Berry's song, Johnny Be Good, would enter the charts 6 weeks later after that release on this day in 1958. Only went as high as number 8. And here's an interesting bit of trivia about that song. The original lyrics referred to Johnny as a colored boy, not a country boy. But Chuck Berry would realize soon after that if he changed it to country boy, it would be more likely to get play on the radio. So there you go. It became a country boy. Johnny Be Good, released on this day back in 1958. And again, in the mid-1980s, Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly in the movie Back to the Future brought that song back to life. And in fact, if you follow the theme or the plot of the movie, it was Michael J. Fox and Marty McFly who was actually credited with inventing the song, because Chuck Berry's cousin, you see, was playing at the same dance that Michael J. Fox's character was when he busted out Johnny Be Good. And so Chuck Berry's cousin called him and said, "Hey, you know that new sound you've been waiting for? Well, this is it." Anyway, I digress. Did I ever tell you about the time I saw Chuck Berry in concert? I'm not really sure it was Chuck Berry in concert, to be perfectly honest with you, but a buddy of mine and I went down to St. Louis because Chuck Berry was putting on a show. And I think, was he 90 yet? He was definitely into his 80s. Anyway, it must have been into his 80s because this was quite some time ago. And we thought, when might we get another chance to see a legend like Chuck Berry? So we piled into the car and the two of us did a road trip. We went by the Field of Dreams in Iowa from straight out of the movie. Is This Heaven? No, it's Iowa. Except my buddy, can you imagine going to the Field of Dreams location and not bringing a baseball glove with you? I mean, the whole movie is about, Dad, can we have a catch? And we get out of the car and I excitedly grab my baseball glove. And my buddy looks at me like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, we're at the Field of Dreams. We have to have a catch on the field." So we didn't get to have a catch, at least not a very good one. He tried doing it barehanded for a while, but that's the kind of dopes I hang out with. Nonetheless, we stopped there. We went by the Surf Club, which was the final concert played by Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, Richie Valens, etc., before their plane went down. And the site where the plane crashed is still marked in a cornfield out there. And I remember going around and around. We were driving all over the place trying to find it. Like, how are we going to find this place? It was sort of loosely marked on maps, and you'd talk to people and they'd point you in certain directions, but it was a little bit tough to get there. And we're kind of driving around in the general area, and all of a sudden, along the side of the road, mounted to a post, was a big pair of Buddy Holly glasses. And you're like, I guess this must be the spot. So we parked and we walked through the field where it had been carved open, where those Buddy Holly glasses were, and went right to the site where that plane had come down. And then, of course, into St. Louis to see the Chuck Berry concert, which turned out to be one of my biggest concert disappointments. I've had a few over the years, which is really sad because I love me my music, as I know you love yours, and you want to see a legend perform. But I think Chuck Berry's family was just kind of putting Chuck Berry out there so they could make some money off his name. I'm not even sure Chuck Berry knew he was on the stage that night. Nonetheless, we traveled all the way to St. Louis to see some form of Chuck Berry at some club in some basement bar. And that's my Chuck Berry story. Going back to the movie that brought Johnny B. Good back to life, Back to the Future. Just tell me again why the 1980s that was the best decade for the movies, period. Right? There has not been I don't care if the Oscars just finished and everybody liked One Battle After Another and all those other things. The 1980s brought us all of the very best stuff, right? They introduced us to Back to the Future and the flux capacitor and made time travel possible. Also, I think repopularized the DeLorean automobile, not to mention so many other things, right? The action hero wars between Stallone and Schwarzenegger. What a great decade. Not bad for music, really good for film. Hope you are doing well on this Tuesday morning. I understand you had some pretty severe thunderstorms back home last night. We also had them here in Saginaw. It's funny because we're on the road with the Rangers who play tonight, and Josh Piercy and I share a room, and my bed is closest to the window. And I thought at times, like, is there an airport nearby with this flashing beacon of light for some reason? Because every once in a while it would, and I was facing the window, even though my eyes were closed, the flashes of lightning were so bright that it would wake me up. I'm like, what is going on outside? Is there an emergency somewhere? Anyway, it was just the lightning. So we had ourselves some pretty good thunderstorms as well here in Saginaw. As I understand, you had them back home. And unfortunately for us, I don't know if you've gone through this with your pet, but if you have and you figured out a way around it, boy, oh boy, would we ever love to learn about that, because Rosie the pandemic pup is not a fan of thunderstorms, believe you me. And we have not been able to do anything to settle her down when the thunderstorms are even imminent. When it starts to rumble a long way away, Rosie starts to panic and she paces, she pants, and there is absolutely no settling her down. And I don't want to. I know some folks have, and you do you, but I don't want to get into the sedation idea. I would rather not medicate her to keep her calm during storms. But oh my goodness, my beloved woke up to a big mess in the kitchen because poor Rosie had herself a rough night out there in the living room while the storm was going on outside. And this poor dog. I wonder how that even starts. I've tried one of my most recent efforts at getting this done, or helping her get over her phobia, was to take her for a walk in a thunderstorm. So last summer, and I love me some thunderstorms, I really do. But last summer, it was coming down in buckets. And I'm like, let's go, dog. We are going outside together. I'm going to be out there with you. I'm going to show you that this is nothing to be afraid of. Oh, did we get wet? And that poor dog's tail was down the whole way. She's like, what is this guy doing to me? I was just trying, Rosie. I was just trying to help you get over your thunderstorm phobia, but it did not work. And so my poor beloved was stuck with that last night and woke up to the big mess in the kitchen while I'm just chilling like a villain here in Saginaw, Michigan. Hey, where do you get sent for work? Do you get to go to exciting places like we do? I mean, who wouldn't want to be in Saginaw on a Tuesday morning? We ran into a guy when we got into the hotel yesterday who works for a company headquartered in New York, but they've opened up a new facility here in Saginaw. And he said he's basically been living at this hotel since June. Like, you're coming up on a year based in New York, but spending so much of your time in Saginaw, Michigan. That's a pretty good distance away from headquarters and just getting this new plant up and running. But imagine that, 9 months or so, just hanging out in Saginaw. We only have 3 days to hang out here in Saginaw. So I think we'll find a way to get by. And we've got some good hockey games to watch along the way. Rangers and Spirit tonight. More about that in just a moment. But let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. All right, instead of just 2, we're going to give you 5 on your Farwell Show 5. Number 1, a Waterloo company is going to build a new wastewater pumping station in Kitchener. Regional Council approving the $22 million project to be built by Baseline Constructors. The wastewater pumping station will replace the existing Spring Valley station on Riverbend Drive in Kitchener. The new station will also increase capacity from 245 liters per second to 350 liters per second, and be built to allow as much as 470 liters per second in the future. Number 2, remember those bike rodeos we used to attend as kids to learn how to safely ride a bike in our neighborhood? Well, regional police are bringing it back next month at Queensmount Arena. Riders can navigate an obstacle course, they can get safety tips, they can win prizes. The event is free, but registration is required. You can sign up at wrps.ca. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Kitchener Council has moved one step closer to creating a renoviction bylaw. The Finance Committee voted yesterday 5-3 in favor of moving ahead with a plan that would require landlords to have an inspection completed to ensure the tenant has to move out during renovations, along with a license fee to move forward with the work. The bylaw will cost $100,000 to get started and $200,000 annually moving forward. Council is expected to vote on the new plan next month. Number 4, last weekend's Rally for Cancer at Rim Park almost doubled its fundraising total from a year ago. We talked about the rally on the show a couple of weeks back, which was a pickleball tournament to support cancer care through the Waterloo Regional Health Network. After raising $10,000 last year, this year's Rally for Cancer raised $17,000. Congrats to all concerned. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, it's game day, baby. We are with the Kitchener Rangers on the road in Saginaw, where Game 3 with the Spirit goes tonight. Pre-game coverage starts at 6:30 right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. That, of course, 570 News Radio. Josh Piercy and I will be on the air starting with that pre-game show and bring you all of the action from the Dow Event Center. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for a Tuesday morning.
You mean pride.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
I did do some math, by the way, just speaking of the Rangers playing tonight in Saginaw. There was one game in the OHL playoffs last night, and it was the Owen Sound Attack hosting the Flint Firebirds, and Flint won 10-0. So 3 games into that series, Flint has won the games 11-1. Pardon me, the first game was 8-1. 8-1, 11-1, and then 10-0. That is 29-2. See, I did the math. 29-2. The Firebirds have outscored the Owen Sound Attack so far in the 3 games they have played in their series. That's a tough look for the Owen Sound Attack. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with your morning wake-up call here on the show. Either you can make it or I will. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Lynn, thank you very much for the email to mike@570news.com and the suggestion for a lightning vest for Rosie. We've thought about it. I'm pretty cheap, you know that, right? And so I'm like, do you could you rent one first? Could you lease it, try it out? Because I'd hate to spend that kind of money and then have it not work. But I think that's probably a good direction for us to go. Appreciate you, Lynn. The email mike@570news.com. Lynn also remembers those bike rodeos from when we were kids, and they would give us our own little license plate for our bicycles, which was a great memory. And I remember those two. Little yellow plate on the back of our bicycles to show that we had taken the course and we were ready to ride. And that I'm glad that police are having another one of these bike rodeos. I'll just remind you again, WRPS.ca is the website you can visit to register. It's going to be at Queensmount Arena, the bike rodeo, April the 25th. It really caught my attention because I do remember those as well from when I was a kid. And I think it's important that we still do things like that. Frankly, I have reached a point of my adult life when I look around and I either walk or drive through our city, and I'm not a bicyclist, so I can't say I ride a bike through it. But when I'm driving or walking, and I do both of those every day, the sheer number of other moving vehicles, let's say, from scooters to e-bikes to whatever, there's so many of them. I am getting to the point where I think that we need to find some way to regulate these machines because they're everywhere. There are all kinds of them, and it's kind of like the wild, wild west right now still, isn't it? In terms of the kind of vehicle you can have, the battery that powers it, how fast they can move. I know other places around the world have started requiring civil liability insurance when you're out on the roads on things like that. I don't think it's the worst idea. I think we can learn from some of those best practices. I know why we want to have the opportunity to use these things. I get it, but there's so many of them out there now. I think we got to find a way to rein them in with some kind of regulation. When we were out walking, Rosie and I, on the weekend, a guy came by on the street and you could hear him coming because he had a gasoline powered motor on his bicycle and he was cruising through the neighborhoods on that. So you do you, and clearly people are able to make that work, but it's not something that I think should just be on the road without some sort of regulation around it. Does that say Andre on the phone? Let's go and see if Andre is there. Is that Andre?
Oh, my goodness gracious. Thank you. Mike?
You're welcome.
I just can't believe that tonight's the night. Game 3, just like the news said it this morning. 1-2 at home. That was Chris. And now we're going over there. Let's get 2 more and get a break. And it's just amazing that we can have this young talent and playing just spectacular. But the reason I'm calling, Mike, is for Rosie. You should get her some kind of a T-shirt, to like a comfy T-shirt. You know what I mean? Like a safety.
Yeah, one of those like weighted vests or something like that.
Yes. You should think about that. Maybe that would help. But you take care, enjoy your trip, and don't worry about it.
Thank you, Andre. Good to hear from you today. I like how he adds in enjoy your trip because, again, I'll just go back to where have you had the privilege of traveling for work? And how much better was it than Saginaw? I shouldn't be too hard on this part of the world. It's a nice place to come if you're into the outdoors. There's lots of good fishing and camping around here, but we're right in the heart of Saginaw. The arena's not in the nicest place. The hotel's kind of it's on a very busy road, and we're just surrounded by strip malls and stuff like that. It's kind of meh as far as that's concerned. But we are here for hockey, and that's what matters the most. Going back to the Farwell Show 5 and that new wastewater treatment plant, a couple of things about it that I like what the region has done. One is it's a local firm that's going to be building it. So that's a very good thing, right? Because we've been talking for quite some time now with all of our elbows up, right? We're going to do our best to support local from a municipal perspective as well. So I love that it's a Waterloo company that's going to be doing this. And if you're wondering about the timelines, the anticipated completion date for that new wastewater treatment plant on Riverbend Drive in Kitchener is 2028. So it's obviously these things don't happen overnight, but let's hope they stay on track with that and get it open in 2028 and add much needed wastewater capacity to our community. As we talked about, it's about 245 liters per second now. This new facility will be able to scale up to as much as 470. So you're basically doubling what currently exists in terms of the ability to treat wastewater. So I think that's a good thing all around, and it's showing that we are moving in the right direction to get through this issue that we are having with our water in the community. The problem, of course, is this is just an upgrade / replacement to an existing wastewater treatment facility. It's not necessarily adding even more capacity to deal with the capacity issues that we are currently struggling through. And on the renoviction bylaw that the city of Kitchener is going to move forward on, the Finance Committee voted 5-3 yesterday in favor of moving ahead. The three holdouts were councillors Davey, Singh, and Schneider. And I gotta say, I'm kind of on the side of the holdouts here. I don't want anybody to be renovicted, obviously, but we are once again, as a municipality, injecting or inserting ourselves into provincial matters. And how many more times do we do this? We're doing this on homelessness. We're doing this in so many other areas where municipalities, which have very few levers to pull when it comes to generating revenue, right? You can have property taxes and you can have service fees. That's it. Or user fees. There's no other way for a municipality to generate revenue. So for $200,000 more now annually onto the city of Kitchener's budget, that's going to be on the backs of city of Kitchener taxpayers. It's not getting spread out through a more progressive income tax or sales tax or anything like that, which could be implemented provincially. We are just going to take care of it municipally. I understand the idea of looking after our own, and there's a good part of me that says this is a good thing. But one of these days, we're going to have to figure out a way to stand up to the province and say, we're not doing your work anymore. You have to figure this out. But this is the situation that we're in. Along those very lines, I'm sure you heard yesterday, $8.8 billion. That's a lot of dollars that the province and the feds are pledging so that development charges can be reduced in municipalities. Oh, did I just come up with another way that municipalities have generated revenue? Yes, I did. But you know what? It's not helping home building. So we'll talk about this announcement from the feds and the province yesterday and see what it might mean to get housing construction started again. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Well, it was the big news yesterday when Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Prime Minister Mark Carney held a joint media conference announcing $8.8 billion, yes, that's billion with a B, over 10 years so that municipalities can reduce development charges. These development charges, as I'm sure you know, are a tax, essentially, that a municipality places on a new home construction build so that infrastructure that connects that new home to services, amenities, etc., can be paid for. Scott Anderson is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Home Builders Association and joins us to talk about it. Scott, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What do you make of the $8.8 billion announced by the province and the feds yesterday?
Well, it's a welcome announcement for the industry. We've been working with both levels of government over the last year or so, presenting the evidence showing how what the impact of these high DCs are on home building. It's made many projects unviable. And of course, when we're not building, the supply chain of new homes starts to drop immensely. And with less supply, prices go up and home buyers are left without options.
Does this announcement make an immediate impact, Scott?
This will be something that'll roll out over the next few years, Mike, in terms of new projects going forward. Compare that with the announcement last week between Ontario and the federal government. Again, another welcomed announcement where they're removing HST off the sale of all new homes for the next year in Ontario. That spurs people off the sidelines, gets them into presentation centers and looking at homes that they are now able to afford. But the DC reduction, this is on new building going forward. And this, again, is welcome because our pipeline of new builds have stalled through a combination of a number of things, but DCs are right up there at the top of the list.
I'm glad you said it that way because I was wondering about that. I understand that DCs are absolutely a concern. That HST break that you mentioned also is a good sign for potential prospective home buyers. But what are those other factors, Scott, that are holding us back from really getting these homes started? Because I can't help but think the economy is a pretty big part of it too.
Absolutely. When you think about this being probably a home is the largest ticket item that most families would buy in their lifetime. When you look at the high cost of that, and then you layer on top of that some economic uncertainty, people are unsure about their jobs, and they're having to prioritize expenditures. And when they're looking at these high costs of homes, they're just not viable for family budgets. But when we look at development charges in particular, they were introduced in 1997 in Ontario. Sorry, in 1989 in Ontario, substantially updated in 97. They haven't really been looked at for the last 29 years. And when we have 444 municipalities, they have about 444 different interpretations of that. So the reason that we are so encouraged by this move by the province is to not only help offset those in terms of some immediate financial help here, but also to look at how these charges are applied, how they're interpreted, how they're being collected. Municipalities are using the tools that they have. Like I want to be clear that this is not necessarily municipalities doing things that they shouldn't. They're working within the law. However, obviously the program is not working right when you have over $12 billion sitting in municipal DC reserve funds that have not been spent, which means they've been raised and put into the bank and not used to build infrastructure. So we need to get that money out of the bank and into the ground.
When you talk about those 444 different interpretations, are you encountering different size, if you will, development charges from municipality to municipality?
Absolutely. We're seeing highs in places like Markham of $170,000 being added to the cost of a single family home. Toronto, $128,000. Smaller municipalities have smaller infrastructure needs where they don't have transit, where they don't have the need to run significant new water and wastewater infrastructure, for example, due to high growth in new homes. Their DCs are lower. So when we have examples of 19,000 in development charges or 45,000. But when you combine the average, like when you look at the province's numbers over the last couple of weeks of their two major announcements, they're saying that between the HST reduction and DC reduction, they're taking $200,000 off the price of a typical home across Ontario. And that suggests that they've been overcharging, or home buyers have been unfairly shouldering this burden of $200,000 per home on average. That's $10 billion a year when you think of on average, we're selling about 50,000 homes a year over the last 5 years. That's a lot of money that is sitting in residential mortgages right now that has made it significantly problematic for families to afford those payments.
Do we have an idea at this point, Scott, by how much this will reduce the cost of a new home?
If you look at the DCs alone, Mike, again, you look at what they are right now, and if you look at Markham, let's just round it up for easy numbers, $180,000. The province's plan, as it fully implements, expects to reduce that up to about 50%. So if you think of taking $90,000 off the price of a home just on DCs alone, that's a significant impact in terms of a family that could qualify now for a mortgage, where when you had 90,000 more on the price tag, it's out of their reach.
What does this mean for the Home Builders Association in terms of getting some projects that might be stalled, restarted, or anything like that? What does this look like on the ground?
Well, as we get more of the details about how this will actually be implemented, the positive thing that we understand now is that it is the province of Ontario that's administering this program. It's not a joint negotiation between the feds, the province of Ontario municipalities. If Ontario is able to administer this, it just makes it much cleaner in terms of reaching those deals. And when these funds are transferred to municipalities to help lower their development charges by 50% going forward. It requires some reform on their end as well, in terms of they, as the Premier said, had to have some skin in the game to be able to make this work. What this means is that those decreases in costs get passed on to the home buyer in the same way that those costs are now passed on to the home buyer. These reductions will be taken off the price of a home and make these homes much more affordable. I had one call from a developer over the weekend when they were contemplating, based on the government announcement of last week on the HST, that if DCs came off, and if the HST now, to help stimulate this, they had a 300 unit project, 300 new homes in a southwestern municipality, that project all of a sudden became viable. They're actually excited about bringing that project forward. It's approved, it's ready to go. It just, they could build it, but nobody could afford to buy those units. So now they're actually looking at moving that project forward. That's 300 units that'll be coming into the next year or so for availability, just based on this one announcement.
You mentioned as the province administers this, Scott, what mechanisms will be in place to ensure that those reduced DCs are being passed on to the consumer?
Well, first off, Mike, as you said, our pipeline is stalled. Presentation centers are quiet right now. People are not able to contemplate the idea of buying a home now, just because of the high prices that are a result of all the things that go into it. When you think about it, government fees and taxes are estimated to be about 30% of the cost of a new home. That just makes it so that they're being priced like a luxury item, not something that people actually need to be able to live. What this means is that when the province approaches municipalities and municipalities start applying for these programs, they'll look at, how do we actually get those DCs down to a reasonable amount? How much money needs to come in from the other two levels of government? What can the municipality itself do to reduce that? And that target is 50% reduction when we move this forward. Now, we've had some great municipalities that did not wait for this incentive. They moved ahead. We had City of Mississauga reduce DCs in some cases 50% to zero on the types of homes that they were looking to build. We had great reductions in the City of Vaughan, City of Barrie. Other municipalities are looking at doing that. And what we did get the assurance from the province when they were leading up to announcing this is that those municipalities will not be penalized and asked to do even more. They will be recognized for what they've already done. And I would suspect they'll be at the front of the line to be able to access these new funds, which is great for home builders in Ontario and for consumers.
Scott, I really appreciate the time on the show today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Appreciate the opportunity, Mike.
Scott Anderson, Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Home Builders Association, joining us to talk about that announcement we heard yesterday from Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Prime Minister Mark Carney, $8.8 billion to help municipalities reduce development charges. Is this an incentive enough to get you into the housing market? If you've been waiting on the sidelines, waiting to see what might happen for prices, might this move you into the housing market? We'll take your calls right after this quick timeout on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Municipalities are using the tools that they have. Like, I want to be clear that this is not necessarily municipalities doing things that they shouldn't. They're working within the law. However, obviously the program's not working right when you have over $12 billion sitting in municipal DC reserve funds that have not been spent, which means they've been raised and put into the bank and not used to build infrastructure. So we need to get that money out of the bank and into the ground.
That is Scott Anderson, Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Home Builders Association, joining us to talk about the announcement yesterday between the provincial and federal governments of $8.8 billion over 10 years to help municipalities lower development charges. I appreciate where Scott is coming from here, but I see two devils in the details here. One of them is a question that I alluded to, whereby if these development charges are being reduced, how do we ensure that those savings are being passed on to the consumer? And I don't mean to paint with a broad brush here and say, you know, those greedy developers and start wagging my finger. That's not what I intend to do. But I think we have to acknowledge the reality of that potential issue. So however the province sets this up to administer it, we had best be sure that those savings are indeed passed on to Joe and Jane Public. The other side of this coin, though, is what Scott alluded to, and that is this $12 billion that's in a bank account and not in the ground, helping spur new home construction. And I'll just be blunt about it. I'll speak more bluntly than Scott Anderson just did. As far as I'm concerned, municipalities have gotten kind of drunk on development charges over the years. In some cases, these development charges have increased by as much as 1,000% in the last 15 years. It's rather incredible, but I was just saying it before the 9:30 update with Christine Clark. Municipalities have little to no room to maneuver when it comes to generating revenue. They can increase property taxes, and we know how we all feel about that, or they can have user fees associated with certain things in the community. That's it. But development charges, when you look back historically at the allowance for municipalities to impose these development charges, as I described it earlier, it's essentially a tax. And depending on how a municipality interprets it, it can be increased by 1,000% over 15 years. And that's why I'll go back to the language that I used. I think some municipalities got kind of drunk on this idea of this is another way to generate revenue. And we know municipalities need revenue. So is this an admission by upper levels of government that there's going to be some funding flowing back into municipalities? But those are the two big areas that I worry about in this. Will the costs be passed on to the consumer, as they should be in this case? And how will municipalities react when it comes to reducing those development charges? Always like to hear from you on these things at 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Here's another thing to keep in mind, because you know that I'm a numbers guy. I like to break it down, and I have to credit David Drew with this. When David was on yesterday for his weekly Drew's Views segment, he brought this up. $8.8 billion over 10 years. Okay, we've got a pretty nice number here. That's a pretty nice headline number, $8.8 billion. That sounds like the province and the feds are really stepping up here, but it's over 10 years. So let's break it down, and let's assume for a moment that the $8.8 billion is split equally over each of those 10 years. That means in each year of this funding, there is $880 million available. Still not a bad number, but it's no $8.8 billion, right? So now you've got $880 million available annually. And then and you probably heard Scott Anderson from the Ontario Home Builders Association say this, there are 444 municipalities in Ontario. I used rounder numbers. I went with 440 municipalities in Ontario. Okay. So 8.8 billion is your headline number over 10 years. If it's equally distributed over each of the next 10 years, in each year, there will be $880 million available across 440 municipalities. That works out to, are you ready for it? $2 million per municipality. Now, I know that small municipalities are not going to get the same level of funding as larger. Of course not. But again, looking at the numbers equally distributed across this vast province that we live in, $2 million per municipality if the pie were to be divided equally. Now, the only number I don't have that I'm very curious about is how much revenue is generated by municipality X, Y, or Z from development charges. I don't know the answer to that, but I am very confident when I say it sure as heck is more than $2 million. I mean, you heard Scott talk about Markham, for example, and $180,000 in development charges on one home. So if you're doing 10 homes, there's your, well, let's call it 11. There's your $2 million bucks. Guaranteed, it's way more than 2 million in Markham. Guaranteed, it's way more than 2 million across the region of Waterloo as well. So understanding that it's not going to be distributed evenly across the province, we do have 440 municipalities that will be competing for lack of a better phrase, this $880 million annual pot. And then it starts to get a little bit less impressive, I guess. And look, as much as it's great to get the HST break on new homes, which was announced about a week ago, as much as it's great to help municipalities lower those development charges, because as Scott says from the Home Builders Association, this is one of the things that's holding up home building. One of the things. What about all of the other things? And I think chief among those other things, of course, are market conditions. You're not going to build what people are not going to buy. It's as simple as that. And quite frankly, you're not going to build when you have to leverage yourself to a far greater degree with interest rates where they are right now, and the market is a little bit sluggish. So is this a step in the right direction? Absolutely. I don't want to be whizzing all over it, but I think we have to remember that municipalities have really enjoyed themselves with these development charges. Heck, Waterloo just voted last week to increase their development charges. So from that increase, now they're going to have to figure out how to decrease. We're all going to be competing for this pot of money, and we'll see where it ends up. I am going to send you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then let's talk federal politics and that new leader of the federal NDP. He comes into a party that has a whopping, and I use that term sarcastically, 6 members. How does Avi Lewis rebuild the federal NDP? We'll talk about it next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Learn from our regular guest on issues like this. Peter Wollstonecroft is a professor emeritus of political science from the University of Waterloo and joins us for a chat. Professor Wollstonecroft, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Good day to you.
Good day to you, sir. Avi Lewis, is it a good day for him as the leader of a party with only a 6-member caucus?
Yeah, send him a letter of congratulations or condolences. I don't know which one would be better. He's got a big hill to climb. And, his party deep in debt, doing very poorly in the polls, and the kinds of things that he wants to talk about, okay, I can see they're important, but he doesn't want to talk about Trump and all the things associated with the United States. So it's going to be a difficult time for him. He's a very talented guy. He's very eloquent, and but it's going to be a difficult time.
What do we know about Mr. Lewis? I mean, his bloodlines run pretty deep in the NDP, don't they?
Well, yes. In fact, it's almost a dynasty when you think of his grandfather, David Lewis, leader of the NDP, and then his father, Stephen, who was had a very esteemed public career, but for a long time was leader of the Ontario NDP. So there is a political lineage there, and I have to say I'm no surprised that with somebody with that political environment in which he grew up, and he was at Upper Canada College and University of Toronto, that his proficiency in French is very, very poor. And I'm surprised that somebody who would have public ambitions in his circumstances wouldn't have been much better at French than he is. But that's
what work lies besides the French then? I mean, my goodness, we just saw the Air Canada CEO announce his pending resignation, and most of it's because he couldn't speak French all that well. I mean, if you're going to lead a federal political party, surely to goodness you have a grasp of our other official language, don't you?
You would think so. And he's had a political interest. I mean, he's been in 2 elections, so he has that political ambition, which people have to do all the kinds of things you have to do. So that's a big question mark. But he also has to work with a small caucus, and it's going to be difficult because he's not going to be in the House, and it's going to be a while before he is in the House of Commons. And he's going to be imposing an agenda on them that it's hard to tell if they would agree with him. And his biggest problem, and I asked myself the question: is there any precedent for this? And I don't have one really. So he has the NDP leaders in Alberta and Saskatchewan saying, "It's not a question of we're not liking you; we're opposed to you 100%." Because the kinds of things you're talking about are contrary to the interests of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And I suspect the leaders of the other provincial parties are not happy with him as well. And here's an interesting thing. When you look at Canada nationally, the NDP is very, very weak. But provincially, they're strong. They form the government in British Columbia and Manitoba. They're the opposition parties in a strong position in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and in Ontario, and also Nova Scotia. So they have a national presence in provincial politics, but they're very weak nationally. Now his job is to formulate a winning plan nationally, but he's going to have to draw upon the provinces who have a very different style. They're very pragmatic for the most part. What are the problems? What are the issues? What are the solutions? And he comes from a much more ideological point of view. And all the time, his solution to a problem is more public investment, more public this, more public that. So he's a big state guy. And I'm not sure if the provincial NDP would agree with him.
One of those provincial NDP that you made reference to, Alberta, where the NDP forms a fairly robust opposition. And Avi Lewis is a keep the oil in the ground kind of guy. I don't see how that's going to go over well, not only with the provincial NDP there, but his caucus members in Alberta.
Yeah, so he has a big problem. And it is very difficult to unite a caucus if you're not in the same meeting room with them and sitting beside them in the House of Commons. Now, he has a real problem. He doesn't control the environment. And so he can't say to Mark Carney, "Oh, call a by-election in such and such a place," because Mark Carney would say, "Well, there's no vacancy there." I did a little background research. Aren't you glad to know? There were only 25 ridings in the last federal election out of the 343 ridings there are in Canada. Only 25 in which the NDP is either first, second, or third. That's less than 10%. So that means across the land, nationally, they're in a very weak position. And if a by-election came along in most constituencies, the NDP would say, "We don't really have a hope here." And it'd be bad news for Avi Lewis to run in it. Big
in
problem.
light of that, how much more difficult does that make his job then? Because look, he's media savvy. We get that. But how does he gain traction outside the House?
There's no magic elixir here. There's no magic button to press, and he has to work the field such as it is. And I just don't know how many well-off people are prepared to give a lot of money to the NDP. They have a big indebtedness coming out of the last election, and the first thing they have to do is try to clear the books. The worst thing for the NDP would be if Carney called an election the next year, because the NDP would not have any resources and little capacity to fight the election, so they'd have another dismal result, and that would be very difficult for Lewis. So he not only has a big mountain to climb, he's got a big ocean to swim. That's the end of my metaphorical strengths, by the way.
I like that, though. I like it very much. If we were to look at the agenda itself, Peter, if I'm going to take my glass half full here, it certainly differentiates the NDP from our two other main federal political parties. But I don't know about public grocery stores, the $50 billion green transition, oil stays in the ground. We're going to move all these, workers into greening the economy, et cetera. Are Canadians, will enough Canadians have an appetite for that to make the federal NDP relevant again?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't have a good answer. I do have an answer. I don't think so. And I listened to Avi Lewis's speech on Sunday, and all the way through, he was using the word public. We're going to have a public this, a public that. Well, that means government. So he's a big state guy, and he also said we know where the money is. We're going to go get it. So what he means is that we're going to tax corporations. Well, a lot of corporations are able to move, so that's not a good idea. And also, we're going to tax rich people. Well, rich people can move too, and how many? What does he mean by rich? I mean, if he's talking about 0.01% of the population, not many people would say, "Well, I have to worry about that." But that would not produce the kind of revenue he's talking about. And when he's talking about a big state, he's talking about big expenses. Already, and we have highly indebted governments, and he's going to be adding to that, or borrowing money, printing money, or raising taxes a lot. So that's what it comes down to. So I suspect most Canadians would say we have other things to think about, and one of them would be, for heaven's sakes, we need more doctors, we need more nurses, we need better hospitals, that kind of stuff.
On a more philosophical note, Peter, I mean, we're talking about, I mentioned the two other main parties. I know the Greens still kind of kick around, but certainly not with any authority. 6 members currently of the federal NDP. I mean, is it time maybe that Canada just shifted into a two-party system?
Well, I certainly think there's a good argument for consolidation of the left. And there would be a different kind of discussion if the Greens and the NDP formed a party. Is that going to happen? Well, hard to say. But then there will be some unhappy Liberals who don't like the direction that Carney's going. So they might be available. But I see no sign that those parties or those different factions want to consolidate and form one party. Well, that would help a lot in terms of the vitality and the possibilities for electoral success for such a party.
If the Greens and the NDP were to get together.
There are warring cultures, and they don't like to come together. You think they would.
Indeed.
So there's no
Peter, as always.
Occurring.
Sorry?
There's no consolidation on the left occurring, and that's what should happen. That's what you're getting at.
Yeah, it is. And I've long wondered about that. I can't help but think, because really, since the great orange wave under Jack Layton, and Ed Broadbent, we look back that far as one of the the best NDP leaders to never be prime minister. Some have even said that about Tom Mulcair. It's just, if you're going to lead the federal NDP, any aspirations you have to be prime minister, you might as well just park them at the door.
By the way, Thomas Mulcair and Avi Lewis hate each other.
that has come across very clearly since Mr. Lewis's win on Sunday.
Sorry,
for
Mike,
sure.
I got a big cough all of a sudden.
That's quite all right, sir. I think I have taken enough of your time as it is. Thank you for doing this.
Have a good one.
You too, Peter Wollstonecroft. Poor guy, going right into a cough as I took too much of his time today. But I could talk about this sort of thing for the rest of the show. I've always found, with no disrespect to the Greens, but the three-party system, well, federally and provincially, quite frankly, to be a little bit meh. There's always been conversation about uniting the left, but I don't know how many current, like, look at what Mark Carney has been able to do in terms of attracting new MPs through floor crossings. I get the sense that his agenda right now is pretty darn popular. Certainly not for more left-leaning progressive members of that caucus, and surely there are some, but not enough to bring the NDP back to any level of relevance federally, at least from where I'm sitting. And I think Avi Lewis is what I will say about Avi Lewis's agenda in a positive light is that it is certainly different, but I don't know that voters in this country are ready for bigger government. Not right now. We've got other things much more, and I've never been a big government guy, so we've got much more important things to worry about right now. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Turn it up!
Today, in case you had forgotten, is a game day. We are in Saginaw, where the Kitchener Rangers are taking on the Saginaw Spirit. Game 3 of our Western Conference quarterfinal. We'll get everything underway with the Harris Law pregame show tonight at 6:30. At this time on the show every day, right around this time, I like to remind you that not everybody is a jackwagon, because, you know, we talk about things on the show that sometimes get us frustrated, sometimes get us upset. And you might start thinking, everybody I know is such a jackwagon, but not everybody. Not everybody. So since this is a game day, I am going to share with you a story that reminds you that not everybody is a jackwagon, and it's got a nice connection to the beautiful game of hockey. A young girl attending a game for the Hartford Wolfpack. Oh, yes, those Hartford Wolfpack. And she was sitting in an area where, you know, when they get those T-shirt cannons out and they throw T-shirts into the crowd, it was perfect. It went right to, or at least towards, this young girl, but then bounced off a wall and ended up in the hands of another child. And this little girl was heartbroken. But wouldn't you know that there was a police officer in Hartford who was working at the game as security, and he noticed what had happened. And instead of just letting the moment pass and thinking, oh, that poor girl, he decided he was going to step up and do something special. So he found out who the girl was. He tracked her down, and he presented her with her very own hockey toy and a soccer ball, which immediately turned her night around. Instead of getting a T-shirt from a T-shirt cannon, she ends up with a hockey toy and a soccer ball. And this simple gesture of kindness, remember, kindness costs you nothing. This simple gesture of kindness meant everything to the family, who had shared that the moment helped teach their children about compassion and the positive role police officers play in the community. The young girl even wrote a letter to the Hartford Police Department with her own thank you note attached to it. "You are very thoughtful," she wrote to the officer who presented her with that toy and that soccer ball. "Thank you for the hockey toy and the soccer ball. I hope you have a good day." The police department shared the story as a reminder of what truly matters in their work. This is what policing is about, said the Hartford Police Department, showing up, paying attention, and making a difference when it matters the most. So what could have been a huge disappointment for a young girl, it was just a T-shirt, right? But you step in and you do something out of kindness, out of compassion, because kindness costs you nothing. And it gets turned around into a story that we can share with you, reminding you once again that not everybody is a jackwagon. Every day at this time on the show, we like to share such a story with you. If you know somebody who is not a jackwagon, and I'm sure that you do, then you should let us know. Please do let us know by sending me an email to mike@570news.com, and maybe we can share the story of the person in your life, in your neighborhood, who is also not a jackwagon. We want to make sure that we've take some time every day to share a story with a slightly more positive tone attached to it. Still to come on the show today, just after 11, about half an hour from now, there was a protest at the Huron Natural Area over the weekend. We'll check in with the protestors and tell you what it was all about. Plus, just over an hour from now, you know those new cart-based, our new waste collection system, right? And those carts that are cluttering up our driveways, our front yards, like they're not exactly the nicest looking things, are they? Well, a local nonprofit has come up with a solution that I think you just might be able to get behind. So we'll tell you about that in about an hour's time, just after the 11:30 news. But right after this update from the 570 News Center, we're going to give you a deeper dive into tonight's game between the Kitchener Rangers and the Saginaw Spirit. Josh Piercy joins me next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Well, it is the Kitchener Rangers Playoff Gameday. We are on the road with the team in Saginaw. Game 3 tonight, as you just heard Hutch talk about. And it would not be a road trip without a little adventure from the road. Josh Piercy joins me now, our color commentator with Rangers broadcasts here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. That, of course, 570 News Radio. And let's just tell the story, because this is a story where Josh came to my rescue with a twist.
Well, I mean, Mike, first of all, I was sitting in the background of the show all morning feeling like furniture. I thought it was like a love seat. So I thought I'll get up, I'll go downstairs to the lobby, I'll get some work done there. Mike does that in the morning, leaves me to get a couple extra hours of sleep. So I thought I'd go downstairs, I get down there, I'm sitting there and I get a call from Mike and it's, "Hey, dude, where are you?" I'm like, "What's going on?"
Because when I left the room, Josh was
here
in the room, and breakfast was served at 9:30 this morning. So I couldn't get through the line at breakfast and back on the air in time. So I went down at 10 o'clock because that's the longest stretch of time I have to get a break. So I have enough time to get downstairs and get back up to the room, except Josh was no longer in the room and I didn't take a room key with me. So now I'm locked out while the live radio show is continuing.
And it's not the first time that's happened this season.
I'm so embarrassed. It's twice now.
However, when you called me, I thought, okay, perfect. I'll get up there right away. That's a good five floor run up the stairs, but we'll make it happen. I tap my pocket, no key either. So then I go to the front desk. I'm "Hey, do you think I can get another key?" They're not too sure about it at first, but as soon as I said radio, I said, "We're live on the radio right now. I need to get in that room." They figured it out. I got the extra key, 5 steps up or 5 floors up, unlocked it. And I think most people would have not known that it was a hiccup unless we told them.
You did a great job. Like, you were up here in the blink of an eye. I didn't know you had to go get another key. And the funny thing is, while I was waiting, like, I'm knocking on the door thinking you must have just had your earbuds in so you couldn't hear me. There were 2 people cleaning rooms in our hallway. I'm like, "Can you please let me back into this room? It's urgent." And they wouldn't let me in. Do I have that dishonest face?
You don't know. In a way, it provides me a little bit of security. I know that they're not going to let in any of my constituents into the room, but in another way, it would be nice. We have an emergency here, folks. We're on the radio.
We're trying to get a radio show done, which I should just never leave again. Like, I should pin myself to this chair. I should not eat. I should not drink for 4 solid hours, because that's twice now I have locked myself out of a hotel room while doing the show live.
I think we go baseball rules. You do it one more time, then you go take those extreme measures.
It's the 3-strike rule, like they have in the United States. I like that. We talk about that a lot on this show. People want a 3-strike rule for Canadian criminals too. I'm not a criminal. I'm just a moron. And imagine poor Jen back at the boardwalk trying to operate this show where she can see through the Zoom that I'm not here.
Yeah.
And she's like, we have a guest on the line. Peter Wollstonecroft is waiting. Where's Farwell? Anyway, Josh Piercy to the rescue. There's your first adventure from the road. And have we been here 12 hours yet? Just over 12 hours. We got here around dinner time last night.
Yeah, it's it's beautiful Saginaw. It's not exactly Honolulu, but we've got a little bit of rain in the forecast for today. We're sitting in a hotel in the middle of an industrial park in beautiful Saginaw. So I've been to worse places, Mike. And the best thing about this trip is tonight we're going to see a heck of a hockey game.
We certainly are. And here's my take. One of my takeaways from the first 2 games. Yes, it's the 1-8 matchup, Kitchener being 1. But the Saginaw Spirit have shown me something, Josh, that if I'm a Saginaw Spirit fan, I'm kind of looking forward to the future here.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, who knows with these new rule changes? Hopefully they can, see enough that makes the really talented young guys like Nikita Klepov want to stick around. Levi Harper as well. I think he's got a very bright future in this league. So if they do, and they can develop around those guys, there's plenty of optimism. I think there's optimism in this fan base. There should be that they can maybe nab a win tonight and try to see what they can do in this series. I think they've really impressed a lot of people, albeit I think for the most part, Rangers Nation has been pretty calm in spite of the fact that, we went through an entire game where they were playing from behind and then 2 whole periods on Sunday where it was a stalemate. I personally never really felt any urgency that I thought, oh, the worm could turn here and the Rangers could lose. I still thought they always had the game on their stick in spite of the fact that it was very close.
Can you bite your tongue, please, when you talk about the Saginaw Spirit stealing a game? Because if they do, that's just one more step towards the possibility of having a return engagement here for a game 6. Listen, there are worse places to hang out. You've already made that clear, and I don't disagree. I mean, it's not the most exotic place to go, but Saginaw is just fine. I would just, if we could avoid it, why wouldn't we avoid the trip back?
I agree. The devil called me and he said I have to be his advocate. So I've decided that I will at least give them the benefit of the doubt. But no, I think, Rangers Nation can be fairly calm today or tonight when they're listening to us on the broadcast, because what we've seen from the Rangers so far has been domination in game 2, I thought, in spite of the fact that they didn't score till the 3rd period. As soon as that Sam O'Reilly goal went in, it was smooth sailing from there. And I thought throughout that game, they defended really, really well. So as long as they stick to those principles and a little less of the run and gun that we saw in game 1, they'll be just fine in game 3.
What will it take for the Saginaw Spirit to steal that game tonight that you mentioned earlier?
I think there's, we saw them have a couple of early chances in games 2 and games 1. I think that if early chances can go in, and then Stefan Shurigan has a really excellent game, I think there's a chance that they can steal one. I think it's just a lot more. You need the bounces to go your way if you're Saginaw to really take down a team with the depth and the skill and the experience that the Rangers have, because the way it's set up, the Rangers can go down 2-0, even 3-0, and have belief behind them that they can overcome that deficit because of the fact that a couple of them been there before. Sam O'Reilly, he is a number of cups. So does Jared Woolley. A bunch of these guys. Andonovski has been in the playoffs many years now. So there's a lot of experience there. So you would bet on these guys to come good even when the chips are down. But for Saginaw, they just have to get their fans behind them tonight. Hopefully they can fill the Dow, and hopefully this little town here in Michigan is excited for playoff hockey.
The experience breakdown is more than 300 games of playoff experience for the Kitchener Rangers to less than 100 games of playoff experience collectively on the roster for the Saginaw Spirit. And one of the other things that I take away from the first 2 games, Josh, is that the Kitchener Rangers can beat you in multiple ways, because we saw two very different games played by the Rangers and two victories back at the Memorial Auditorium in Kitchener.
Yeah, the first game was there wasn't a whole lot of physicality from the Rangers like we've been used to seeing. There wasn't a real structured D like we've been used to seeing, but you've got Jack Pridham, you've got Dylan Edwards, you've got Sam O'Reilly, these guys on the forward line who can get a goal from nothing at sometimes. And then in game two, it was completely different. It was shut down defense. It was everybody even on the forward line had their defensive assignments, and they were going to play stingy and they were going to play strict, and that's how game two worked out. So I think the Rangers are at their best when they employ a little bit of both, and I think we did see a little bit of both on Sunday, especially in that third period, because I thought they were dominant. They held the puck in the Saginaw end of the ice almost the entire 20 minutes. Saginaw had 0 shots. I mean, that's kind of a stat that jumps out of the page at you as something that doesn't happen very often in this league. So very, very exciting. And that experience piece, I think, comes in even more the further you get into a series. When it's a series that's 0-0, I don't know that the experience piece matters as much, because it's just another game of hockey. It's when you're kind of backed into a corner like this, or when you're standing over your opponent, ready to finish them off, that I think that experience really comes to play.
UC Ahokas told us before the game on Sunday that his team needs to defend better. He's always talking about defending well, but after the 6-4 win in game one, when the Rangers were playing from behind most of the night, UC Ahokas says we need to defend better on Sunday, and boy, oh boy, did the Rangers ever. It must be frustrating for the other team. It must be kind of boring for the other team's fan base, because when the Rangers are defending at their best, they give you next to nothing out there on the ice.
Absolutely. And it was the physicality that came into play too. There was just nobody out on that ice who wasn't willing to put their opponent with their face against the glass and to take it to him physically. I think another stat that kind of jumps out of the page too is that in game one, the Rangers had 3 power play opportunities. They scored on all 3. Game two, Saginaw has 3, and they didn't score on any. So the Rangers penalty killers, and that's a big part of their defensive game too, is when they do take it too far physically and make a mistake, make an error, put themselves in the box. The way that they're structured with the penalty kill right now, I think you look back to the regular season and the penalty kill statistics. I think if you stretched out that second half of the season over the whole season, you'd probably have seen the Rangers be number 1 in penalty kill, not in number 2. So it all over the ice in all categories. They defended admirably. I expect, knowing how successful they were with that on Sunday, that they'd be looking to employ pretty much the same thing tonight.
Back-to-back seasons for the Kitchener Rangers as the second-ranked penalty kill unit in the league. This year, just behind the Windsor Spitfires. How did you know that the penalties were going to work out the way that they did on Sunday, Josh? I want to know. Who tipped you off?
I am not. I don't have any insiders in stripes in the league, I swear, because that would be against the moral code of the broadcasters. But no, listen, it just works out that way in hockey. The numbers in terms of penalties, they just don't stay skewed very often. And whether it's the hockey gods or it's these guys had a look at the stat sheet from the night before and saw the way the penalties were going. And to be honest, everybody's happier when it works out that way. You don't have one coach who's kind of getting on your case because he's so far behind in that statistic. You don't have the fans having too many of those stretches of the ref you suck chants, although we did hear a couple of those on Sunday night. And always happy to hear the fans chant no matter what it is. It's always good. So Mike, I just, you see a 3-0 in the penalties category and you think that's got to find a way to even it out. And I've had a lot of predictions this season in terms of scores, and I've been right very seldom. So it could have just been luck.
It was uncanny that the referees could not find a penalty against the Kitchener Rangers in game one, and they could not find a penalty against the Saginaw Spirit in game two. Game 3 is tonight. If you want to talk a little Rangers hockey with us, our phone lines are open, 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. We'll take a break, come back with more. Guelph Storm home tonight too. We'll talk about the other series and get you ready for Rangers and Spirit. Josh Piercy joining me on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio. It is a game day, a playoff game day. Rangers in Saginaw to take on the Spirit tonight. Harris Law pre-game show coverage starts at 6:30 with Josh Piercy and I, and we spend some time this morning on the show getting you all set for that game tonight. It's one of 7 in the OHL playoffs, Josh, but let's talk about the one series that will not continue tonight because they played last night. So already 3 games in the books between the Flint Firebirds and the Owen Sound Attack. But boy, oh boy, I don't think the Attack know that the playoffs have started.
No, I don't think so either. 10-0 is a pretty disgusting scoreline for any organization. For the Attack, we played that last game of the regular season up at the Bayshore, and it kind of felt like for a moment that there was a lot of positivity in that arena. They were really beaten up on a young, inexperienced Rangers side pretty hard. But when the Rangers came back and tied that one up 7-7 and then forced overtime, I thought, what's going on up here? There's something that was my first sign that there was something not quite right. That maybe there was not quite as much fight in that dog as we had thought. But yeah, this has been a terrible, terrible playoff series for these guys. I think I heard you say 29 goals in 3 games so far. And the problem is, I don't think they have that bad a team. They have some experience. Obviously, they sold off a lot of what they had before the trade deadline this year. Carter George being the out and out star that was on that lineup before the trade deadline expired. So they're obviously lacking the type of goaltending that they thought they'd have. But Tristan Bennett is a drafted goaltender. So. You got to wonder if there's not something happening behind the scenes there. I just don't think the locker room in that place is quite right now because even a bad team doesn't get beat up on that bad.
Bennett had a really rough night last night, got pulled, and Kaprowski was unavailable due to illness, Matthew Kaprowski. So the Owen Sound Attack had to turn to a guy they had just signed as an e-bug for the emergency backup that day. Tough times. They lose game 1, 8-1. Game 2, 11-1, and then game 3 last night, 10-1 for 10-0 for a 29-2 advantage for Flint in terms of scoring in that series. Just crazy. The Guelph Storm have had trouble getting pucks past Joey Costanzo, the reigning OHL goaltender of the week. They've only beat him once in 2 games, but they haven't been blown out the same way that the Owen Sound Attack have. 4-0 for Costanzo and the Windsor Spitfires in game 1. 4-1 in game 2. But the Guelph Storm, as they head back home to the Sleeman Center tonight, have their work cut out for them against a really good Windsor team.
Yeah, it was always going to be an uphill battle for Guelph, and I thought that we looked at the scorecards halfway through game 2, and Guelph was well in it, halfway through the second period, and then the kind of floodgates opened and the Spits were able to get out on top. But I think that they'll have seen enough from their team in the first 2 games to think that maybe, things could change here as we head back to the Sleeman Center. We know that Guelph are a very streaky team. They'll play like the best team in the league for a couple of games in a row, and then they will look a little more Owen Soundy over the next couple. So it just depends on what version of the Storm we get to see. Obviously, that's a young team with a lack of experience in a lot of categories. A lot of those young guys will really benefit from getting whatever kind of playoff experience they can get this season, in the hopes that that'll help them grow and develop as they head into next and that big Memorial Cup in the Royal City next year.
When you talked about Owen Sound and the trades they made, including the big piece Carter George, now with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, Carter George had never won an OHL playoff game prior to this year, and the Greyhounds go and take both in London and head home for game 3 tonight with a 2-0 series lead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Greyhounds probably came in with a bit of a chip on their shoulder after losing that home ice advantage at the very last sort of a couple of games of the season. And I think they went into London really, really looking to take it to those guys and to kind of prove their own worth. You have to feel really happy for them. I think that they have a lot of the pieces that you exactly want heading into an OHL playoff series. They have probably the best goaltender in the league. Brady Martin had a bit of a tough year in terms of injuries, but now he's looking like he's back and being a stud and making Elmira proud. So I think they're a very, very dangerous team. And if the Rangers can get their way past the Saginaw Spirit, it looks like, especially now with 2 games back up in the Sioux, that could be a potential playoff series, and that one would be star-studded and very exciting. I think they're a dangerous team, but I think that'd be a heck of a series.
Yeah, so you realize we're on that collision course, right? We talked about it before the playoffs, the way the travel could work out. Here we are in Saginaw for game 3. If it keeps going that way in this series and the Rangers keep winning and the Sioux keeps winning, round 2, we'll be spending a few days having these game day chats up in the Sioux.
The only issue is the numb butts after sitting on a bus for 8 hours.
Oh my gosh, no kidding.
If Sault Ste. Marie were placed where Drumbo is, it'd be fantastic. I love it as a town. I've got no problem with the people there. They're great people. We stay at the beautiful Delta there on the water. The only issue is you can't teleport there. You got to take the bus.
Yeah, you do. And speaking of that, Maxim Sokolovsky, the London Knights' big defenseman, Russian, can't cross the border U.S.-Canada because of Russia-U.S. relations right now. So while the team from London, they travel I-75, they'll cross the border and go up through the United States. Sokolovsky gets his own special trip going up through Canada so he can make it to the Sioux without having to cross the border.
Wow, he'll get to see some sights.
He will get to see some sights, absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully they rent a vehicle that's tall enough for him. Go more Ford Escape than a Ford Fusion, I think, for that big guy.
All right, so the other 6 games in the Ontario Hockey League tonight, the playoffs continue. Josh and I will keep our eyes on them, and we will bring you all of the action from the Dow Event Center. It's the Rangers, it's the Spirit. It's a critical game 3. I think the start for the Rangers means everything tonight.
Yeah, first 5 minutes is going to be huge. If they can come out to an early lead and kind of quiet that crowd down after they hear that big, beautiful American anthem that they love to do here down south of the border, I think it'll set them up nicely.
Your Harris Law pregame show will start at 6:30 right here on 570 News Radio. Well, if you were listening to our show last Friday, one of our guests on the Friday 4 Roundtable mentioned that she would be participating this past weekend in a protest. That guest on our Friday 4 Roundtable was Yvonne Fernandez, who, of course, is a former councillor in the city of Kitchener and an advocate of the Protect Huron Natural Area group. And Yvonne joins our show this morning. Good morning, Yvonne.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. How about yourself?
Good. Yes, the rain gave us a little feeling of spring is in the air, and I'm watching the tulips bud out. So it's a good positive projection.
I like that. Thank you for sharing it, because we need a little bit of that after the winter that still has not ended. I was talking to a buddy who had been up in Sudbury on the weekend. He said, you should see how much snow they still have up there. So.
Oh, they got a ton in Edmonton where my son lives. And I said, just keep it there. Thank you very
That's
much.
right. We'll watch the tulips bloom. Thank you very much.
Yes.
To the protest that you alluded to on Friday when you were with us on the Friday 4 Roundtable, what was it, Yvonne, that you were protesting this weekend?
So one of the things that a group of citizens and I have been working on since the fall is protect the Huron Natural Area. We're not concerned about the actual area. We're concerned with the boundaries and the borders, the lands that border the natural area. One of the things that we were very concerned about was these 39 acres that were sold by the city of Kitchener to Gateman Malloy for 10 light or industrial lots. The concern that we have is it's uplands from the Huron Natural Area. And as we all know and understand, water flows downhill, and more impervious cover, so rooftops, driveways, etc., that are salted during the winter will run off into our storm sewers, into our ponds, and into our creeks. And not only that, we learned that they would be removing 700 trees, which is a little bit contradictory to the city of Kitchener's pledge to reduce their carbon and to increase their tree canopy, which they said that they would do by 2030, but they've also now pushed that out to 2050. So it really flies in the face of the whole, we want to be a green city. Certainly, we want to make sure we have lots of places for jobs, and light industrial offers opportunities for all kinds of small business. But that said, we found out that there was over 1 million square feet of empty industrial space in Kitchener alone. That equates to 2 Conestoga malls. So why are we clear cutting land adjacent to an ecological sensitive area, which means we will be removing 4 wetlands? And yes, they're saying we're going to replace it with 1 wetland, which is actually 99% less than what the wetlands that are there now. It'll impact the whole ecosystem, possibly and likely impact the Huron Natural Area and the sensitivity of that area with changes in the land and changes in topography. So it really, we came together. We were very saddened that council supported Gateman Malloy's proposal to change it from 1 site to 10 sites. As I said earlier, more impervious cover, more driveways, parking lots means more runoff into sensitive areas.
I remember hearing a presentation to Kitchener Council. I think it came from our planning and zoning folks at the city, but this has been planned, Yvonne, in this area for this industrial park, so to speak, for decades now. Surely this would have been on your radar when you were a councillor as well?
So I looked back at the the time. So I was one of the committees, advisory committees that I sat on was the Huron Natural Area. Now that wasn't one that met very often. So yes, we were aware that that the boundaries have been zoned, but the City of Kitchener did a very intensive, comprehensive review of their bylaws during the time and after I was sitting as city council. So if the city can take on those kind of reviews, why would they not have taken an opportunity to change the zoning adjacent to such a significant area? I mean, the wisdom to take that out of industrial area originally and protect it was a very wise and smart move. The promise was also to grow that area, and nothing has happened. So yes, it was on my radar, but it wasn't immediate. The sale of the land happened after I was on council. And while I was on council, one of the big discussions was, do we sell off parkland? And it was almost a unanimous vote that no, we would not be selling off parkland. Yes, I know this was not parkland, but it could have been. It could have been, they could have changed the zoning. The city has the right to do that.
I know you and your fellow advocates were protesting this weekend against some tree clearing that has already begun. What is the purpose of that clearing that's happening right now?
So the clearing is complete, and over 700 trees, according to the report, were removed. I think the purpose was to raise awareness in the community that this can't keep happening. We talk about growing this city bigger and bigger, and I'm not a believer in bigger is better. But nevertheless, the intensification that we're doing in this city means we have to have places for people to go for respite, for recreation, just to walk the trails, to be a part of nature. It's such a good thing for people to have that opportunity. But the more we compress around places like the Huron Natural Area, and Hidden Valley is another one of those, the greater risk we have of what's called edge loss. I may not say that correctly, but when you go right to the edge of the forest, you start losing the edge of the forest, and soon there's no forest left. And I can tell you that's happening along Strasburg Creek near where I live. And so the purpose is to raise awareness. The purpose is to let council know that, we're not happy with these kind of decisions. And can you stand behind your pledge to be a greener city? Removing wetlands, removing trees is not going to reduce our carbon footprint. As a matter of fact, it's going to increase our carbon footprint.
The Huron Natural Area, as we know it today, just so folks understand, because it's an area that I thoroughly enjoy as well. Mm-hmm. It's a great place for that respite that you refer to. The trails are lovely, and none of those will be impacted by this development of the industrial park, correct?
Not immediately, no. I think it will take time for us to see a change. And I think also, when you say, so I'm seeing flooding of people going in that area, and that's amazing. The challenge is we don't have enough green space. And then this was told to me by a city staff person that there's so many people coming to the Huron Natural Area that it is starting to impact the sensitivity. So people are starting to make their own trails. So they're saying, well, let's go through the woods here. Let's take this, and staff are constantly trying to block new trails, because the more people that walk on those sensitive areas, the more compressed and compact the soil is, the greater risk the trees and the flora and the fauna have for surviving. So let's protect what we have, but let's also grow it for that population that the city wants to grow.
Right. Has there been any movement as of yet, Yvonne, on the part of the city to change any of these plans?
No, there has not. There's I would like to see the areas that are south of Huron Natural Area, which are privately owned or development owned. I would like to see some of that land conveyed to grow the Huron Natural Area, so that we don't see another razzing of hundreds of trees. There's hope. I always try to be hopeful that people will do the right thing. I don't know that this was the right thing. I think there's ways to add industrial development in existing areas without clear cutting almost 40 acres of land.
So what would then become, because again, this was zoned for this industrial park. What should it be rezoned and become what then perhaps?
Sure. There were lands that people had on their properties that were originally residential lands that they zoned to natural hazard lands because they were close to creeks, or they were in areas that city staff at the time recognized needed to be rezoned. There was the opportunity to rezone all of that, or part of it even, so that it could be added into. And how long is this land now going to sit before they even get a water permit from the region to add water to the lots that they want to service? Is it going to sit for a year? Is it going to sit for 2 years? Every time it rains, like we had last night, and I haven't driven out there yet this morning, but that runoff, because there's no vegetation to hold that runoff anymore. And the black silt fencing that they have put in place is not going to hold tons and tons of sand and salt and sediment. I've seen what happens when a silt fence fails. I've seen it happen here at Strasburg Creek, and it can be pretty dramatic. So it's an area of sensitivity that, let's grow those areas and not take more away. Even if they had only rezoned half of it, maybe we would have been protecting even part of those wetlands that are there now that have been functioning for decades and decades.
I can't help but think of Sunday night at the Junos and Joni Mitchell getting that Lifetime Achievement Award. And of course, one of her most famous songs, Big Yellow Taxi, right?
Yes.
And you don't know what you got till it's gone. I hear where you're coming from long term here. And of course, the reality is, as we sit and have this conversation on March the 31st, 2026, neither you nor I might be around to see the long term implication of this change to the zoning.
That's true.
Yeah.
Frank Glue wrote a really sweet book called Samuel's Most Important Message, and it talked about the Blandings turtles and how this little turtle was trying to send the message that we need to protect these areas. And sadly, we're not seeing Blandings turtle in that area anymore. And why is that? What's happened? What's changed? And my grandkids are out there all the time, and people are enjoying and loving it. So grow it. Don't take it up. Don't take it away.
Yvonne, I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye now. Yvonne Fernandez is an advocate of Protect Huron Natural Area and, of course, a former city councillor. And I struggle with issues like this because the zoning has been in place for as long as it has. I believe we're upwards of 2 decades. It was always planned to have this industrial park where it is currently in development. But you hear about the Blandings turtle that Yvonne just shared, and that species no longer in the area. So what drives it away, and what are the implications of it having been driven away? And we're having all kinds of conversations like this right now in this community when it comes to growth. Should we even continue to pursue the growth trajectory that we have long been promised? 1 million people by 2051. Maybe we have reached a point where enough is enough. These places of respite. Can I bring you into downtown Kitchener? Would that be okay? When we're looking at the former bus terminal on Charles Street and the number of people who say we need to add some green space here because there's not enough of that in downtown Kitchener. And for a kid that grew up in this city, with Victoria Park being the crown jewel of the city of Kitchener's parks, and imagining that that park in and of itself isn't enough, but you look at all the buildings that have gone up downtown, all the people who are in big, tall condominium towers, where do they go for green space? Where do they go for that respite that Yvonne just mentioned a moment ago? Obviously, you are traveling from your home to somewhere. You get more green space into downtown Kitchener to supplement what already exists at Victoria Park, and you're moving in the direction of providing those amenities, providing those respites that 1 million people, forget the 700,000 we have right now, 1 million people are going to be looking for. I'm thinking back on a call that we got from, was it, I'm going to feel bad, Betty? Definitely started with a B. It might have been a Barbara, but I think it was a Betty or a Beth. Anyway, she was talking about adding some green space at the former bus terminal on Charles Street in downtown Kitchener because we don't have a place to go anymore. There's no place to gather. To use Yvonne's word again, where do we go for respite? Would love to know, and I don't want you to give away any, hidden gems, I guess, but heck, can we enjoy them with you? I love driving out to the Huron Natural Area, as odd as it seems to be driving to an area where then I go for a walk along a trail. But it's a beautiful spot and it's very well used. If you go into Riverside Park and you get in behind the main grandstand and baseball diamond, and a lot of people go there and do some birding, right? There's a photograph right on the front page of today's Waterloo Region Record of a woman doing yoga in the beautiful weather yesterday at Waterloo Park. So many cracks and crevices and nooks and crannies in Waterloo Park, etc. We could go on and on about what our current park and trail system offers us. But I'd love to know where you find that respite in this fast-growing community these days. Let me know on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Yes, it was on my radar, but it wasn't immediate. The sale of the land happened after I was on council. And while I was on council, one of the big discussions was, do we sell off parkland? And it was almost a unanimous vote that no, we would not be selling off parkland. Yes, I know this was not parkland, but it could have been. They could have changed the zoning. The city has the right to do that.
Yvonne Fernandez is a former councillor in the city of Kitchener and an advocate now with the Protect Huron Natural Area group. They are expressing concern about what we are seeing when it comes to some tree clearing near the Huron Natural Area and the plans that the city has to create, and it's been zoned and planned for a long time, an industrial park immediately abutting the Huron Natural Area, and what will the impact be on the species, the natural habitats that exist within the Huron Natural Area today. 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Let's go to the phones. Mark is with us this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Hi, Mike. For me, Mike, it's Bright Up Park. And I'll tell you why.
Okay,
go ahead. You can watch baseball games there, Mike, the youngsters, upcoming young ball players. You can have a picnic there, Mike. You can walk the trails for the bush. It's a really beautiful park, Mike.
You know what, Mark? When I saw your name on the call screen and knowing where you hang out, where the area of town you live in, I knew you were going to say that. And I'm right there with you. Ever since I was a kid, I would ride my bike, and we lived over by the Odd. I would ride my bike out there to the Bryda Park area on those trails, and I still love it today.
It's a gem, Mike.
It is. Thanks, Mark. Good to hear from you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go next to Mo, a first-time caller here on the show. Mo, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Hi, thank you so much. Well, I love Victoria Park, and I lived near there for many years, but, it's an urban park. And I think what Yvonne was saying, the Huron Natural Area is very different. And
yes, it's very true.
It's very different for our souls when we walk in just wilderness, and that's what the HNA is for so many people. And, even so many of the trails that we walk right now have already been sold by our city council. And, they're not going to be there for us in the future. And I've seen deer, I've seen skunk, I've seen all kinds of birds and frogs and turtles at the Huron Natural Area. And we are destroying their habitat, like the fragmentation of habitat can't be ignored. That's huge. And also that area is one of the few pockets of the Carolinian forest that we have left. And, that's I'm trying to think what a treasure, a world treasure that we have, and we are destroying it. And our city council just allowed this to happen again, and it may have been zoned industrial. That doesn't mean, I heard you say that it was intended to be industrial, but I don't think it was intended to be industrial just because it was zoned that way. They just never did anything about changing the zoning until they decided to sell it, and then they just left it as industrial. And I don't think that's okay. I think that they need to be held to account for destroying this beautiful place and the home of all of these, hundreds of species of birds and mammals and turtles and salamanders and, so many creatures and butterflies, et cetera. They need these places. And we have all of these empty lots that, and empty industrial places that we could use, but we just allowed them to cut down over 700 trees, and we're allowing them to destroy 4 wetlands. And it's going to be decades. That's the testimony that was given at council before whatever wetland they're recreating will be anything like what it was, Mo,
I appreciate the call. I got to get to news. I'm late, but thank you. I really appreciate it. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Well, leave it to the clever and innovative folks here in the region of Waterloo to come up with a solution like this. I know that you are having the same struggle I am with our new waste collection carts because they don't fit in the old storage containers we had for them. And in many cases, if you don't have a garage like us, these bins are just kind of hanging around like unwanted relatives. I posted a picture, actually a few of them, to our Facebook page a week or so ago. And based on your response to that picture or those pictures, I know that you feel similarly when it comes to these carts. What is it that we're going to do with them? Well, again, thanks to the innovative and clever folks here in the region of Waterloo, maybe, just maybe, we have an answer to that. Marisa McCaskill is the Development and Donor Relations Specialist with Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region and joins us for a chat. Marisa, good morning.
Morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you very much for making the time. A partnership between Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region and the Grand Valley Construction Association may just have the solution we're looking for. What have the two of you come up with?
Yeah, so in conversation with our friends over at Grand Valley Construction Association, we've seen all the same posts that you've seen, and people are definitely struggling to figure out what to do with these bins. So they kind of came to us and said, why don't we partner on a build project where we can build storage that will fit these new bins? And they've generously offered up their workshop spaces to host us and corporate teams if they want to join us in building these storage units.
So really, what they've created here is something that's going to tidy up the yards or driveways of many of us, because as I said, the bins that we made, the storage containers we have had in the past may not work with these new ones. And now this new bin that you have combined on with Grand Valley Construction Association is going to provide the neat, tidy storage that we're looking for.
That's right. It's a nice wood project. So we have lots of corporate teams. We're fortunate that lots of local companies see the value in pairing their team building with community impact. So they join us for different activities. And in this case, it would be basically a wood shop construction project where we build these units out of solid wood. So they'd be nice, solid wood looking units that these teams come in and they help us build. And they also get their sort of team building experience out of it as well.
I love it. And I've seen some of the photos. They look fantastic. If somebody is interested in getting involved in this project, how do they go about doing that, Marisa?
So there's a few different ways you can get involved. We're actually looking for a material sponsor right now that would help us sort of cover the costs of these materials. Like I said, GVCA has been so generous in donating the space for us to do this work. But there's obviously material costs associated with that as well. So if someone wanted to join us as a material sponsor, that would be a massive help. And like I said, we have corporate teams that have sort of joined us throughout the years for different activities, whether it's building on the build site or in our restores. So now they'll have the opportunity to come in and do this as a woodshop project, and they might learn some new skills that might even give them confidence to tackle DIY projects in their own homes. So that's another way they can get involved. And if someone wants to purchase a bin, they can obviously reach out to us and find out more information as we kind of get closer to getting those bins finished and we're getting the costs out there and everything like that. So any way anyone wants to get involved, they can email us at development@habitatwr.ca with questions about any of those ways to get involved.
And how does this benefit Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region?
Yeah, so throughout this, we have our teams coming in. They pay a fee to do their team building with us. And then we also will obviously get funds from the sale of the storage units. So all of those funds will go right back into our home building program to provide more affordable homes for families in our community.
If any group is interested in participating and getting involved in building these bins, does it take all day? How does it work? How much time should they book off?
So we're offering full day and half day options. We know some companies have the time to give a full day towards these sort of initiatives, but some are limited to half days. So we've opened it up to half day options as well. So they can reach out to us and we can discuss options with them. But yeah, we are looking at half day and full day options.
Right. And the site is going to be at the Grand Valley Construction Association in Cambridge?
That's right. Just on Sheldon Drive there.
Okay. And that email address, once again, Marisa, was?
development@habitatwr.ca.
development@habitatwr.ca. If we reach out through that email address, learn more, have your questions answered, and let's get people involved in doing this, because it's just going to make our properties look nicer. Where did this idea come from, Marisa?
Yeah, it literally was just in a conversation with Jeff McIntyre. He's the president over at Grand Valley Construction Association, and he's been seeing all these posts as well. And he thought, hey, why don't we look at something we can build together? We're always looking for new ways to kind of partner together, and this sort of seemed like a natural fit because they had the space for us to bring people in, and we have the people. So between having the space and the tools and the people, we figured we could get something together.
It is a fantastic idea, and I hope it takes off like gangbusters. Thank you very much for joining the show today.
No problem. Thank you.
Marisa McCaskill is the Development and Donor Relations Specialist with Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. They have a new program that you can take part in. Get your company involved in this. Anybody who has spent any time doing that volunteer work through Habitat for Humanity knows how rewarding it is. And the minute I saw these storage bins, I'm like, this is a fantastic idea. Again, I'll just point you back to those pictures that we shared on our Facebook page about a week or so ago of these bins just kind of cluttering up properties because in so many cases, they are big and bulky and very difficult to find tidy storage for. So enter Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region and the Grand Valley Construction Association. And all of a sudden, we've got ourselves a made in Waterloo solution. So you can do a half day or a full day workshop, up to 12 participants. If you have a larger group, team can be split up into morning and afternoon shifts. You get the opportunity to not only do some team building, but get some experience for a DIY project of your own. And more importantly, with the sale of these bins, it's going to support Habitat for Humanity's work building affordable homes for families in our community. Again, that email address, development@habitatwr.ca. And if I can get it done from my remote location, I'll get one of those pictures posted onto our website so you can onto our Facebook page so you can see what these storage containers look like, because it is a damn sight better than the sites that we've been seeing around town since these new carts rolled out in the region. I'm curious as to how that's going for you now, 3 weeks in. Have all the kinks been worked out? I got to tell you, since week one, when everything was so far behind, things have been pretty seamless in our neighborhood, insofar as on collection day, the stuff goes out, and by the time I'm home from work, it's been picked up. So it has improved considerably. One of the two challenges I continue to see. One is I don't think we've yet figured out what stuff or what cart goes out on what day. So I'm going to remind you again, the Waste Whiz app is an awesome way to go, or just copy your neighbor, presuming that your neighbor has it done right. But the Waste Whiz app is awesome. We use it all the time. It can even text you and tell you, remind you the day that the pickup is and what bins go out this particular week. But I have seen that in the neighborhood where, the garbage bin is out on a week that it's not supposed to be, the big black one, or the recycling, because we're only getting that every 2 weeks now. That's a bit of an adjustment for sure. So that's one problem. And the other problem I still see is, of course, how we store these ding-dang things. So I think this container idea, the partnership with the Grand Valley Construction Association and Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, is fantastic. And hopefully that can help us restore that curb appeal that we had prior to this change happening. How is the change working out for you in your neighborhood? Any bumps on the road still? Any hiccups, wrinkles that need to be ironed out? Let me know how the cart-based waste collection system is working for you. 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. We're about 3 weeks into this now. We got it sorted out, right? Things are just moving along tickety-boo. I'm sure of it. We'll take your calls on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Throughout this, we have our teams coming in. They pay a fee to do their team building with us, and then we also will obviously get funds from the sale of the storage unit. So all of those funds will go right back into our home building program to provide more affordable homes for families in our community. Any way anyone wants to get involved, they can email us at development@habitatwr.ca. Questions about any of those ways to get involved.
Remember that email address, development@habitatwr.ca. Leave it to the folks at Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region and the Grand Valley Construction Association to come up with the solution to one of our new problems, right? This is where I got frustrated. I will not tell a lie, and I try not to mince words. One of my big sources of frustration with the change to our waste collection system here in the region is that what we had was working just fine. And then you just went and changed it, and it was not a smooth rollout at all. And furthermore, we are now stuck in many cases with these bigger bins, and I just don't like the way they look. Aesthetically, I find it very unappealing. So, of course, Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, Grand Valley Construction Association come up with this great team building activity come on by, use that email address, development@habitatwr.ca, build a storage unit. They've got it spec'd out. They've already made some prototypes. It looks fantastic. And those new, bigger bins can be stored neatly inside. And all of a sudden, that curb appeal returns to your home. And isn't that a nice thing? Because it gets rather frustrating, doesn't it? How is the new cart-based collection system working for you? How's it going in your neighborhood? 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Are there any hiccups remaining several weeks now into this program? I would love to hear about it. I was talking to our buddy Moose, the bus driver for the Kitchener Rangers, Mikey Reeves. He lives out in Ayr, and he said it was more than 2 weeks. And I don't think I checked back in yet to see if it's been 3 weeks. His compost, his green bin, never got picked up. And when he would call and ask about it, he continued to get the message, just leave it out there at the curb. They're coming. And for more than 2 weeks, the bin sat there at the end of his driveway. I don't think that launching this program when it was still so wintry helped at all, because the snowbanks were so big and we were trying to figure out where we could put these new big bins. And then, anyway, we could go on and on about the early problems, but I wonder how it's going in your neighborhood now. 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. I'm very pleased to report, after posting those pictures that I posted the other day on our Facebook page, at least one of the apartment buildings that was an absolute disaster has reorganized and tidied up to some degree the bins that are outside, that were outside their building. They were strewn along the edge of the parking lot, almost right up to the sidewalk, and it was just not nice to look at all. Clearly, somebody has now been tasked with making sure these bins get lined up in a more appropriate way, and they're tucked around the back of the building, which is where I think they should be. You can only do so much until this storage container came along. Remember that, because now if you get one of these storage containers through Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region and the Grand Valley Construction Association, things are going to look that much tidier. I said the other week too, like, it wasn't that long ago that we at the Farwell household had just done some work in the backyard and got one of those storage containers for our garbage bin and our green bin, because prior to this change, of course, both of those bins were much smaller than they are now. So we get the storage container, you go and spend the money on it. You spend the time assembling it. You put the bins inside, all of a sudden things look nice, and you're like, okay, I can get behind this. And then only a few short years later, do these new bins come along, and you're like, well, now what am I supposed to do? Now I've got these big, huge bins that don't fit in this other one, and we were pricing out some larger storage containers and realizing this is going to cost a pretty penny. And you know me and spending pennies, pretty or otherwise. I'll hang on to the ugly pennies too. I don't care. I don't like spending my money. And I thought, well, that's it. These things are going to sit at the end of the driveway. I'm not spending hundreds of dollars on a new storage container and, doing that after somebody else made the change on my behalf. But would I spend the money knowing that it's going to support the work that Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region is doing in my community? Yes, I can absolutely get behind an idea like that. By the way, when it comes to your old bins, don't forget that you are being encouraged to use one of the other R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. The reuse part is being encouraged when it comes to the older bins. So those old green bins, those old blue bins, mostly the green bins, you can use them as a planter. You can use them to store some things in, some soil, whatever. It can be a storage container. Or the region will collect them on garbage day. They can go out as bulky items and be picked up with your waste collection. I find that a little bit frustrating too, if I'm being honest with you, because it seems like a great deal of waste. Not everybody is going to repurpose these green bins for a planter, for a storage container, whatever the case may be. Not everybody's going to do that. And so a lot of these things, relatively large plastic bins, are just going to end up going to the landfill. Not a huge fan of that outcome, but in case you were wondering, and I know there have been lots of questions about it, your old bins can be picked up by waste collection staffers on Bulky Items Day. And again, if you want to know when Bulky Items Day is, get that Waste Whiz app. You will not regret your time on the Waste Whiz app. I promise you that. So the region will collect them again, but just keep that in mind, because it's one of the side issues that have resulted from this change to our waste collection system. We've got Jersey Bill with us on the show this morning. Good morning, Billy.
Oh, they put me right on. I didn't even know what the topic was now. I was hoping to be on for the next hour.
Well, why don't you start the next hour early, Billy?
Well, very good, very good. Well, I just want to say, I sort of feel a little prescient about what I had said about the New Democrats. Because it does look as though the only possible alliance that Mr. Lewis can make is with the Greens. Essentially, you've got two Green parties now. He could say what he wants about not having sort of existential differences, certainly with those two NDP leaders in Saskatchewan and Alberta, but they've pretty much made it clear that they don't see his policies as being a way for them to get the power. I'm sure that he has good relations with Mr. Cano and maybe Mr. Eby as well, but I don't know how they're going to improve their next election on the federal level if they hold the policies which are sort of like on the extreme. It's all well and good to talk about how we need to get ready for the next century, but the change in jobs that has to be made in a resource area, that's going to have to be a slow and steady progress, and that seems to be the position of Prime Minister Carney, and certainly not the position of Mr. Lewis.
Billy, appreciate the call. Good to hear from you as always. Getting a head start on our Talkback Hour. If I'm being honest with you, I think the NDP's time has come, provincially and federally. I know it's stronger in other provinces than it is here in Ontario, but I don't know that Avi Lewis is going to be the change that the federal New Democrats needed. Although I will say again, on a positive side of things, that at least they're different. There is no question that the federal NDP under Avi Lewis is going to be distinct from the other parties in Ottawa. Kevin, hang in there. We'll get to your call right after this update from the 570 News Center, and then we'll keep the phone lines open. Your Talkback Hour is about to begin on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Well, I most certainly. Okay, let me know how it's going back there in the region of Waterloo as I stare out my window at a Marathon gas bar, a Texas something. I don't think it's a Lone Star Grill, and a Denny's. Oh, wait, and there's an Outback Steak Shack and a Hobby Lobby as well. We're in a pretty commercial industrial area here of Saginaw, but the temperature's 17 degrees. That's Celsius, not Fahrenheit. So I'm looking forward to an afternoon walk, although I'll miss not having Rosie with me when I take that walk. But nonetheless, Give me an update on what's going on back home. Let's talk about the issues of the day that matter to you. It's our Talkback Hour. And remember, star 570 is not going to help you today. You need, because that line's not working, you need 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Let's start Talkback with Kevin. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon, Mike. Hello?
Hi, Kevin.
Hi. Well, looking forward for another win for Rangers tonight. So
I hope so.
Anyway, with regard to the green bean and everything you were just talking before the noon hour, what I did, basically, I kept the new ones outside the house, and I still kept my old one. So what I do, when they get filled in a bag, I still put them out, in the big one. So that way I don't have those big ones inside the garage to take up room. So you can still use it. So it's really being handy for me. And the same thing with the green bean. When it gets filled up, I go and put them into the big one. So you don't have to throw it out. You don't have to send it to a landfill or anything. You can still utilize it.
Wait a minute. I'm confused here. You're using your old green bin, the small one?
Yes, with the same bag, those compostable bags. When they get filled, bag by bag, I put them inside the big ones. So that way, I don't have a big one with a lot of food in it inside the garage to be smelly. So I still use the same old method. When the bag gets full, I go outside beside the house and I put them inside the new one. So
gotcha.
And I have room for 2 cars in the garage. I have no problem for my lawnmower, for my snowblower, and everything. So it works for me. I keep both of them.
Kevin, I appreciate the call. Good to hear from you today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. See, Kevin is one of the lucky ones. Kevin has a garage. Let me tell you what it's like in a household without the garage. And by the way, I know I got in a whole heck of a lot of heck for this the other week when I talked about cleaning up the yard in the springtime, because I saw a buddy when it was still more wintry than it is now, realizing that spring was just around the corner. So he was out in his backyard picking up all the dogs' poopsicles while they were still frozen. I'm like, why would you do that? I just rake it up with my annual lawn raking and put it into the brown lawn waste bag. I know you all gave me heck for it. I can live with it. And so what Kevin's saying about using the smaller green bin with the compostable bag inside, I'm sorry, but I've never put a liner in my outdoor green compostable bin. Never. There's obviously the liner for the small bags in the kitchen compost container, and then that bag just goes out and gets dropped into the green bin, and that's that. Yeah, the green bin's a disgusting mess, but it's a bin. I don't give a tinker's darn what it looks like inside. So I just leave it like that. And again, Kevin, you're so lucky that you have a garage to keep the bins in. So you can have your little one outside to move. Good on you. I got no garage and I got no room for these damn bins. I really don't like them being in my driveway, but that's where they're going to stay because I got no other place to put them right now until I go to Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region and get one of those new storage bins that they're making with the Grand Valley Construction Association. See that? Win-win all around. Let's get back to the phones on Talkback. Sean is with us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Sean.
Good afternoon. I didn't think I'd get through this quick. Wow. Yeah. NDP. I'm thinking Avi Lewis is not the guy they're looking for, not the droid they're looking for, I tell you. He's an avowed eco-socialist, democratic socialist. If I'm reading the zeitgeist of the times with what's going on in the world right now, he's probably not the person who's going to lead the NDP back from the wilderness, in all honesty. Far too left. I don't want to use that term loony left, but it's out there in the fringe of my consciousness, quite honestly.
Well, listen, it's out there in the fringe of mine as well. But let me ask you this. You say that you don't think Avi Lewis is the guy to bring the NDP back. I ask you in response, sir, who is?
If they're true, well, honestly, they need somebody who is a true working class person, not somebody who's university educated. They need somebody to come from the ranks of the union people, quite honestly. Somebody who's not highly educated, somebody who's got grease on their hands. Like, British Labour Party credentials, not somebody from a university background.
All right, Sean. Good to hear from you today. Farwell's Force member number 165. I'm not sure that that corner of the market remains. I'm thinking back on Justin Trudeau being in, I'm sorry to bring up the name. I know it sends shivers down your spine, but I'm thinking back on Justin Trudeau being in Sault Ste. Marie announcing, I believe it was dental care. I don't know, but one of the workers outside the plant that Justin Trudeau was visiting was talking about, what's this going to do for my family? You know, I'm worried about losing my job. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that, which suggested to me that the blue collar worker, at least that one of Sault Ste. Marie, was clearly supporting Team Blue. I think the Conservatives have kind of moved into that space. So I don't know. Maybe you're right, Sean, but I think they left that corner abandoned too long, the NDP, that working class corner. And I think other parties have moved in to take up the space. So I don't know what direction the NDP takes from here. Again, the best I can say is I think that the NDP under Avi Lewis is distinguishing themselves from other parties because they're out there. Like you hang a left at the lights, you keep going left. And that's where you'll find the NDP under Avi Lewis. Does that resonate with enough voters to bring the NDP to power federally? It never has been there before. Why would this be any different? I don't know. Back to the phones. Frank is with us on Talkback. Farwell's Force, member number 365. Good afternoon, Frank.
Good afternoon, Mike. And by the way, thank you for blessing my heart last week. Bless your heart, too, for helping us stay connected. What's better than this? You two are in Saginaw. I'm in Regina, Saskatchewan. It's -5 here, and we're both connected to Waterloo region. Anyways, I digress. But the reason why I would call is because I was always thinking, I don't know who set the agenda or why we have to have 1 million people in the region, but this is what happens, right? Then you hear the plight of the Huron Natural Area. Well, I used to work down there in a factory that's since long gone, but they made the displays for buses. I believe it was called Triton Engineering. And it was great just being in that area to have that to access, even during like before or after I get to work, or even during lunchtime or something like that. So yes, we need to still maintain this balance of employment, keeping our green spaces, places for people to live. But there's got to become a time when the community is mature, right? That's my thinking, anyways, today.
Frank, appreciate you sharing. Thank you. You're sharing your thinking with us on the show today. It's always great to get another perspective. And at the risk, like I'm not opposed to having new neighbors or more neighbors. But I will say that I long just accepted the growth to 1 million people as fact. And remember, please remember, this is not something that the region has been advocating for or driving towards. This is all part of a much larger provincial plan when it comes to growth. We live in an area in the region of Waterloo, an area of southern Ontario that has been designated a place to grow. So you're going to have yourself 1 million people. I just kind of heard that number and thought, okay, like this is what's happening, and we're going to prepare appropriately for it. And I recognize that part of this comes with my advancing years because change is hard, and the little city that I grew up in, you know, we can talk all the time about Kitchener still maintaining that small town feel for a big city. I don't think so anymore. There are a whole lot of condominiums that tell me differently. There are a whole lot of jam-packed roads out there that tell me differently. And that's fine. Kitchener is now a much more thriving metropolis than it was when I was a kid. I accept that, but I don't have to like it. And quite frankly, I don't know that I do. If I'm being honest with you, Kitchener will always have a place in my heart because it's my hometown. And I love this place. I really do. But it has changed in some ways that I don't know. I don't know if the cost of living here and the density of the population is what I want for the rest of my days. That's just me being honest with you, kind of off the cuff, thinking aloud about what Frank was saying about a million people. And I mean, how maybe the time has come to say 700,000 is plenty, or wherever it is the number that I think we're below that now after having some of the international student population wither away. But anyway, I digress on that point. One other tangent I would like to take you on, though, is Frank's call coming from Regina. And Frank has tagged me on a couple of Facebook posts. And let me just tell you how much I love the connection that this show has to Frank, who's from the region. That's why he joins the show. And he listens while he's driving truck. And if I never made it as a radio announcer, I mean, I've got such a fascination with this country. I'm enchanted by Canada. And looking at Frank's posts and seeing, he was just in Merritt, British Columbia. And I just love it. A little slice of Canadiana coming from Frank while he's out there on the road, and he streams our show so he can stay connected to his hometown. I think it's awesome. I love it. And I just get this great picture of him on the prairies now. I've been to Regina before, but these little spots along the way that Frank is staying connected to us from. And I can get behind that idea. If when they drag my old bones out of here, make room in a truck for me, Frank. I'm going to learn how to drive one of those suckers. It's the Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. The Daily Talkback Hour is your opportunity to do just that. Talk back at us. 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Tom is next with us on Talkback. Hello, Tom.
Hi, how are you? So do you think the coaches are going to be getting rid of too, as well as the GM they already got rid of?
You're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs now.
Of course. Anybody else you want to talk about? I think so.
I'd rather talk about anything but the Toronto Maple Leafs, to be honest with you.
Oh, really? Well, okay. I read the script that they were saying these guys that are qualified. The only guys that are qualified are the Hunter brothers. We should have had them at the beginning. Look at the deal they made.
Well, you're only going to get one of them.
Well,
you're only going to get one of them.
Probably get the other assistant or something. What have they done with the London Knights? So it's and the reason we got Marner was because Hunter told them they had to pick him. So I don't know. It seems that doesn't matter whoever they put in there. It's like I said, it's a curse.
It's a disaster, Tom. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's probably is. And,
okay.
All right. Thanks very much, Mike.
Okay, Tom. Good to hear from you today. Thanks for twisting that knife. Listen, I'd rather not talk about the Maple Leafs because it's so painful. It's just such a mess. And when I say you're only getting one of the Hunter brothers, Dale has no interest, I don't think, in leaving junior hockey and going back to the NHL. Mark, on the other hand, I think would be most interested if you can get him back. Because you remember, you used to have him in the fold, but we'll see. It's up to the new ownership group to figure out what they're doing there. Tim is with us next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Tim.
Oh, good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Awesome. Listen, I used to be the 3R kind of guy, reduce, reuse, recycle, but now I'm just the 2C kind of guy, confused and kerfuffled. Because apparently now my recycling only gets picked up every 2 weeks. How did that happen?
Oh, yeah. Well, they gave you a bigger bin, you see.
Oh, yes, and that's going to be super helpful because I've been trying to reduce my footprint for years in this community because we were the institution that started all this blue box stuff. And now what's going to happen is people are going to have that in their garbage, and it's going to be all over my street. And then we're going to be wondering if that was a good decision, I think.
I'm already wondering, Tim, if it was a good decision. It's very frustrating. I've said it lots of times. One of my biggest frustrations with this new system is that we took a system that was working and we decided to change it. And that part puzzles me.
Well, it shouldn't puzzle you, Mike, because this is what happens when institutions and people who don't actually pay the bills make decisions. That's what happens.
All right. Fair enough. I appreciate it. Tim, good to hear from you today. Thanks for the call.
Cheers.
Not to pick too much of a nit, but if Tim wants to be the 2C guy, I recommend Confused and Confounded, because kerfuffle starts with a K. But that's just me picking a nit. You know, I have a bit of a thing for spelling and grammar, but nonetheless, I think Tim, where he's coming from on this is a fair point. And I don't know if it's just like, I want to be as generous as I can when we're talking about this. And again, when you go back to rolling out a new waste collection system, when the winter was still, we were firmly in winter's grip, right? There was so much snow that even finding placement for the bins was difficult at the roadside, at the end of our driveway, snowbanks, etc. But is it just the weather that we've had? Has it been particularly blustery? And is that why I continue to find discarded plastic items on my property these last many weeks? There's a pudding cup sitting right on my front lawn right now. And guess what? We don't eat pudding. I really like pudding. Those old Laura Secord pudding cups back in the day. Remember when they were tins and you had the little pull off lid? Yeah. I love pudding, but I don't eat it these days. And there's a pudding cup on the front lawn at my house. So it blew out of somebody's blue bin. And I remember leaving for work one morning, I think it was last week, 2 weeks, whatever it was. And it had been a windy overnight. And the blue bins, because they're larger, some had been toppled over. And did we ever have a mess up and down the street where I live? And I think we're still seeing the remnants of that mess. So yeah, that is absolutely a factor in the now bi-weekly collection of recycling. Not only do we have bigger, heavier bins to carry up from the basement, in our case, at our house, but we have that much more stuff in them to either blow over or be blown around. And now you're finding it all around the neighborhood. Comes up the driveway, the pudding cup on the front lawn. I don't know. Maybe it's just been a particularly blustery month. It is March still, after all. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then we continue the Talkback Hour, where you weigh in with your thoughts on the issues of the day, or you tell us the issue that you want to talk about, and we will entertain the conversation. How's it going back in Waterloo region? Because it's not a bad-looking day here in Saginaw. We continue the Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Well, I hadn't thought of it that way until Matt Hutchison just mentioned it. Yes, the Kitchener Rangers do have the opportunity to push Saginaw to the brink of elimination tonight. But one step at a time, we'll start with the first shift of the game and see how it goes from there. Talkback continues 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Please note, if you usually use star 570, that line is not working. So try us at 519-570-2545. Preston Paul is with us next. Farwell's Force member number 45. Good afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon, Mike. Just checking in, seeing how you're doing there in the USA land.
You know, it's not so bad. And I admit that when you're traveling with the team, there is less perhaps to worry about when you're making a border crossing. These things are pretty procedural, but every time we have crossed the border since all the nonsense began with our friends down here in America, there has not been a single hiccup along the way. So nice, easy border crossing yesterday. Good folks at the border to talk to, and not a bad looking day outside. We had some heavy rain overnight here, but it looks like a nice afternoon in Sag.
Oh, that's good. I got a couple of things. on Friday when I called in the morning, I talking to Devin, and I was actually shocked that he hadn't filled your music for the Friday for the power things that you were doing, and so I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, I'm going to try and request one, but I still couldn't really think of one. But I actually went with Thunderstruck, not Highway to Hell, even though that's where we're on right about now. And
that's right. Sorry, I got it messed up.
That's all right.
And you should have gone with some White Snake, like Here We Go Again or something like that.
Mike, I have so many songs stuck in my head that the Rolodex just
I know, buddy.
And you try and figure out the one you want to play. And I thought, I'll just let the rest of the Farwell Forest pick, and I'll just sit back and listen. But have you and your better half ever been down to the trail behind the Preston High School where the Speed and the Grand River meet? That is a great place to go and visit and just sit there and look at the beautiful scenery.
I'm sure she has, because she used to go to PHS, but I have not been to that one, so I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, you should come down with Rosie one time. You'd really be amazed. You can park just down on Chopin, or you can drive down Dover Street and park at the end there just before the high school, and the walk is not that far, and it's just a beautiful spot where the Grand and the Speed meet, and you see all the ducks and the geese all in there, and just a beautiful view, especially once it gets closer to sunset, because you got the sun actually setting. So
it's a done deal. I'm going to do it. Preston is a beautiful part of Cambridge.
It is. All right, Mike, you have yourself a great night tonight. Go Rangers.
Thanks, Paul. Great to hear from you today. And to Paul's surprise, that we were not full with our all request Friday last week. I tried, I was a little bit rebellious. So as you probably know, we are able to play up to 1 minute of your favorite song, 59.9 seconds. If I go 1/10 of a second more, I'm in a whole heap of trouble. But I don't know that there's a limit to the number of 59.9 second songs that I play, even though this is a talk show. So we've been getting our all request Fridays filled up so fast that I wanted to give you the opportunity to hear a little bit more music. So it didn't go exactly as I had planned last Friday, but I held some back so that we could fit more in, and I would play them randomly during segments like this. I'm like, here's that song that Paul wanted to hear. And I'm not sure if I'm going to keep doing it, but I didn't get in any trouble. So maybe we can find a way to play more songs on our All Request Fridays moving forward. There will not be one this Friday, of course, because it's Good Friday. We're going to have the day off. Speaking of which, maybe you want to get your fish from Morty's in Waterloo, because they're teaming up again with the former owner of the original Sonny's to make the fish that we all know and love. We used to line up outside that door at Sonny's Drive-In back in the day, right? They've teamed up again for a Good Friday fish fry, and they're supporting Farwell for Hire. And gosh darn it, we love them for that. So get your fish at Morty's on Friday, and then we'll get back to the All Request Friday on the 10th, a week from this Friday. Let's go next to Barb on Talkback, Farwell's Force, member number 233. Good afternoon, Barb.
Good afternoon. I just thought I'd call in, and you were talking about not knowing when things come, when your blue day is, and so on. We did get a package of information that came with one of the bins, which I didn't find till I opened the bin in the spring, and it's called 2026 Waste Collection Calendar, and there's several pieces in it, and there's a lovely booklet, 8.5 by 11. It shows every zone, and all you need to know is the day that your collection is, and it shows a calendar for the whole year, and it has pictures beside the weeks. So you don't even have to think about what I need to put out. You just have to look at the little pictures and see what day it is for you to put out. And it's really simple, and it sits on my fridge, and I don't even have to think. I just have to look at the pictures.
Barb, I love it. Thanks for letting me know that. See, it's like an instruction manual when you buy something, right? I pay very little attention to things like that. So thank you for letting me know.
Well, I must say, when I first got this package, I thought, oh, this has been here all winter. It was hanging in the black one, I guess. And I read it when everything was very confused, and it seemed very complicated. So I went back and looked at it a week later, and it seemed to work out a little bit, but it's great. And it shows you that, and it gives you lots of other information. So maybe, people threw them out or something, but they did a good job of putting this together for us who prefer print to screens.
Yep, I hear you. Barb, thank you very much for that.
Thanks. You have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye now. My favorite bins that I see out at the curbside these days are the bins with that laminated plastic pouch still hanging from them. Those would be the instructions that Barb is referring to. And clearly some of us couldn't even be bothered removing them from the outside of the bins. Instructions? We don't need no stinking instructions. So they just hang there. I always get a chuckle out of that. And I love where Barb is coming from, because more often than not, I much prefer printed as opposed to a screen. But in this case, I will just remind you again, the Waste Whiz app, I love it. I love it to pieces, and it has served us very well getting through this new system. Phil from Stratford is with us next on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon, Philip.
Good afternoon, my friend, otherwise known as numero 81.
Farwell's Force member number. Why'd you end up with 81? Was that just in sequence, or did you pick that one?
No, I think that was next in line.
Good. I like it that way.
Yeah. You sound a little tired, and I think you said you alluded to the fact you were up because of the thunderstorm. You sound
Indeed.
a little lethargic.
I'm sorry, Phil.
Are
what
you
should
still
I do?
on your meds for your shoulder?
No, you know what? I don't like meds, Phil.
Yeah.
I got a physiotherapist, and she has done wonders for me.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. Okay.
Yeah, it's been getting much better.
I'm going to try to cheer you up here a bit so you don't sound so lethargic.
Okay.
Going to resurrect the subject that you mentioned a few months back, and it was in regards to visiting your old homestead.
Oh my
remember
gosh, I
correctly,
still
that's
haven't
off of
gone
Guelph
back,
Street,
Phil.
and I know the side street.
Yeah.
Because I can remember going with an uncle of yours once. A group of us had to go there, and you would have been in diapers. So my suggestion to you is, once the T-shirt weather comes back, you and I are going to go on a road trip. I'll be your chauffeur in my ragtop whip, and we'll make a day of it. And it's best to go when the weather's nice, because the gardens and the flowers and everything else is there.
Wait a minute. We're going to make a day of going to where?
To your old homestead. You know how you had the subject where you were reluctant to knock on the door of the people who live there now?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's not, how can that be a day, Phil? How can that be a day trip? I could walk there.
Well, there'll be food and drinking and everything else involved.
Well, let's get the drinking done so I have the courage to knock on the door.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you and that other magpie, you get a rest before you have to broadcast tonight, so you sound like your professional self.
Absolutely will do that. Thank you, Philip.
Okay.
I apologize for sounding lethargic today. It must have been the thunderstorms. I don't know. Andre is next with us on Talkback. Andre, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Go Rangers.
That's what I like to hear, buddy.
Yeah, let's go Rangers. Big one. I can't wait. I'm walking in the house back and forth here. My chores are done, and I'm ready for it. But, Mike, two things. I'm still, like you, not used to the change, because I actually took my garbage out yesterday, and it's changed to Friday. I'm so used to it. So that's one I have to say. Why change when something works, right? Two, I just can't wait for this game, because that's why I'm calling, because we are so packed that even if Jack Pridham or our other guy there that's on the radio that you mentioned, what's his name again?
Dylan Edwards?
Yes, Edwards. Eddie.
Yeah.
And even if they're not on the score sheet, it doesn't matter, because we're so packed. And I always got my tenor lamb that's there. So you know what? Full team, and can't wait to see how they're going to react, because we are going to be over there, and it's a big game. So if we get this one in a derriere, we get a break. But I just can't wait the result, Mike. So let's go Rangers, and take care, my friend.
Thanks, Andre. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here, okay? If the Rangers win tonight, they have that proverbial stranglehold on the series, but they haven't won it yet. You got to win 4, and you still got to win the third one. That one's the first time on home ice. Listen, a series, I'm going to remind you of this. A series is not over until somebody loses on home ice. So if Saginaw defends their barn, it's going to be 2-2 coming back to Kitchener. Just keep that in mind. I don't want you to get too far ahead of yourself. And the reason that Andre brings up Jack Pridham and Dylan Edwards is because we do this little thing on this radio station because we are the home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. When Jack Pridham scores a goal, we get to do something called JP on 570. You see? JP 570. Or when Dylan Edwards, a.k.a. Eddie, scores a goal, we do Eddie Ficetti. That's what we do. So we can enjoy the morning after the big Ranger win the night before, just to keep you up with what Andre is thinking. That's the best I can do, because sometimes I don't know what Andre is thinking. Let's go next to Harry on Talkback, a Farwell's Force member, 350, but a first-time caller. Harry, you've got a Farwell's Force number, but you've never called us before.
Well, I got it a couple of weeks ago, I think, when I emailed you.
Good stuff. Well, welcome to the program. Thanks for calling in.
So I feel bad because I was at the Owen Sound game with a bunch of guys for that Junior B team that crushed them.
Yes.
And what did we do to their morale? Because looking at their series with Flint, we must have totally destroyed that team that night.
Harry, I think you must be right. It is all the fault of those young pups that the Rangers dressed for the last game of the regular season.
I mean, when a team goes down, what is it, 29-2 in 3 games?
That's what it is. 8-1, 11-1, and 10-0.
We always do an Owen Sound game because we have a very good friend up there who's obviously an Attack fan, and he hasn't been too pleasant on email lately.
I'm not surprised. Why would he be? That's a tough spot to be in. Not only down 3-0, but being outscored 29-2.
Well, let's give kudos to Mike and the group for the talent that we have, even waiting in the wings.
I think that's a great point. That team that we dressed for that last game of the regular season gives us a glimpse into the future for these Kitchener Rangers, doesn't it?
And I think it was the biggest comeback ever by a Ranger team, was it not?
I can't say for sure biggest ever. I mean, it's a wild game at this level, right? Junior hockey, all kinds of things happen, but it's certainly this year we had not scored 6 goals in a period. I can tell you that.
But anyway, let's give kudos to this team. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the next couple of weeks.
I agree. Hey, one more thing quick before I let you go. When you go up to Owen Sound, you get the French fries, right?
Oh yeah, you got to try them.
Attaboy. Good job, Harry.
You always have to try them, and then we do the boot them all for breakfast.
What's that for breakfast?
We go to the boot.
Oh, the boot. Okay. Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
The restaurant.
Good spot.
It has a great spot. So let's see what happens tonight.
All right, Harry. Great to hear from you today. Thanks for calling in. You will hear what happens tonight right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. Josh Piercy and I will have pregame coverage starting at 6:30. Talkback continues on the show this afternoon. Your thoughts on the issues of the day or the issue you would like to bring to the table. We are all ears to entertain the conversation. On the Mike Farwell Show, this is 570 News Radio. Is it just me? Am I the only one who thinks that Ryan Reynolds has got to have better things to do than Tim Hortons commercials? Nothing against Tim's. I just, like, Ryan Reynolds is a big-time movie star, isn't he? Tim Hortons, eh? I wonder how much they pay him for that. Kind of like when you see Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews in a McDonald's commercial. But that sort of thing's been going on for a long time. It just seems to me that Ryan Reynolds and Tim Hortons don't match. But again, I guess money talks, and whatever money you're putting on the table to get Ryan Reynolds into your commercial, I guess it's working for you. And speaking of which, is John Hamm only doing commercials now? All I see of John Hamm is on my TV commercial. This guy I never saw the show Mad Men, but my buddy loved it. Swore up and down, one of the best shows he'd ever seen. And I knew John Hamm from that and from movies And now all I ever see him in is commercials. I mentioned earlier this hour that, of course, we will not be having an all request Friday this week because it's a holiday. It is Good Friday. So we take the day off and enjoy the long Easter weekend. And it is with that in mind, I share with you the email we got from one of our colleagues back at the radio station. And it is under the subject line, Peeps for the Peeps. Peeps are now available in flavors we can't get here, and they are in our kitchen. Help yourself. A lot of times when I'm away from work, from the physical station, and an email like that comes out, I get kind of annoyed because you know me, right? Sugar is one of my main food groups. If it's got sugar in it, I am very interested in consuming it. But a Peep, I'm so glad I am not at work today because there could not possibly have been a worse creation of candy / sugary treat than the Peep. Maybe the Rockets, those little chalk-like candies we get in a cellophane wrapper at Halloween, those are pretty rotten too. And don't get me started on the Big Turk chocolate bar. But the Peeps have got to be the absolute worst thing ever created. And they decided they needed to take them and make different flavors out of them. Why? Why would anybody do this? And furthermore, why would anybody buy these things? I'm sorry if anybody from the company of Peeps is listening or that you work for the company that makes the Peeps. If they're putting food on your table from the paycheck, good for you. But whatever you do, don't eat the Peep, okay? Absolute worst candy ever made, followed closely by the Rockets we get at Halloween. And by the way, with Easter coming up, it's always the solid milk chocolate bunny, okay? The hollow ones, it's like a lunch bag letdown, right? You get this big chocolate bunny, you're all excited, and then you realize, oh, hollow. Like I can eat that in one sitting. I don't care how tall it is. It's hollow. You need the solid Easter bunny and always eat the little candy eyes first because those are the best tasting thing. Well, not so much better than the chocolate, but I love those little candy eyes that come in those chocolate Easter bunnies. But the hollow ones don't disappoint, okay? Tell the Easter bunny to not disappoint this year and bring solid chocolate Easter bunnies for all the kids. What do you have to do to get stuff from the Easter bunny? Do you have to go to church on Friday? Or do you just have to be good? Like, does the Easter bunny watch? So you better not pout, you better not cry? I don't know. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I think Piercy and I are going to go for a walk this afternoon. It's 17 degrees out here in Saginaw. And we'll be back with you right here tonight, starting at 6:30 with your Harris Law pregame show. And then all of the action, Rangers and Spirit. Can Kitchener take a 3-0 lead in this first round playoff series? We will find out later today, and you are invited to join us for all the fun. My name is Mike Farwell. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9. You are a force for good. Bye for now.